Chapter 86. The central square of Celestial Azure City was packed with people. The liveliness today was not inferior to the recruitment competition 2 days ago. In fact, it was even slightly better. After all, it was extremely rare to see a martial Dao master fight. Countless martial artists from Celestial Azure City's martial Dao family clans had flocked over. Mu Feng and Gu Tsangnan had also ascended to the loft next to the square to watch from above. When it was close to noon, the Ye family members arrived at the central square. Yi Xing was among them. He held the dragon tendon bow and walked into the center of the square. With the end of the recruitment competition, the arena in the center of the square had been torn down. The spectating martial artists consciously left an empty space in the center of the square for Yi Xing and Xiong Baoyan's duel. It was about 20 feet in radius. This was a very large space. Normally, there was no need to use such a large space for a duel. A ring with a radius of 10 zhang would be enough. However, Yi Xing and Xiong Baoyan were dueling to the death. When the time came, it would only be a matter of life and death, regardless of the location. Therefore, the spectating martial artists did not dare to get too close, and only surrounded the periphery of the square. 20 feet in radius, the maximum distance was about 60 meters. 120 steps. Compared to the range of Yi Xing's bow and arrow, this space was really small. However, for a martial Dao master like Xiong Baotian, this distance was not considered large. With his attainments in Qinggong, as well as his external attacks, he could attack in an extremely short amount of time even at the furthest distance. Therefore, the battlefield was considered a disadvantage for Yi Xing. However, for Xiong Baotian it was considered an advantage. When the martial artists saw Yi Xing coming over with bow and arrow, they knew that Yi Xing's forte was archery. If Yi Xing wanted to rely on archery to fight Xiong Baotian, then he would have already lost by half the battle. This made the majority of the martial artists not optimistic about Yi Xing's chances. Some of them revealed gloating smiles, while others sighed in pity. In their opinion, Yi Xing would definitely die in Xiong Baoyan's hands today. Yi Xing stood in the middle of the square with bow and arrow in his arms. His heart was filled with lofty sentiments, and his posture was like a mountain. Ever since he made the decision to challenge Xiong Baotian, Yi Xing's temperament had undergone a metamorphosis. Any casual stand, he was like a deep pool of water, a mountain peak, making people look up to him. Yi Xing closed his eyes and waited calmly for Xiong Baotian's arrival. He was certain that Xiong Baotian would come. Xiong Baotian, Xiong Baoyan's, Xiong Baotian, Baoyan's, Xiong Baotian. Xiong Baotian, Xiong Baotian, Xiong Baotian, Baotian, Xiong, Yi, Xiong Yi. Xiong Baotian, Yi Baotian, Baotian. Ye Baotian was the first to discover Baoyan's figure, because the direction Baotian entered the square was exactly where the Ye family was. Although Baotian did not put Yi Xing in his eyes, Yi Xing's archery skills were still important enough. Any opportunity to make Yi Xing's archery skills difficult to display, he would take advantage of it. If he walked out from the Xiong Baoyans, then the Xiong Baotian would be behind him. Yi Xing's arrow might attack the Xiong Baotian after passing by him. And if he walked out from the Ye families, then, if he avoided the arrow attack would be aimed at the Ye family's people. This point would definitely make Yi Xing wary when he shot the arrow. Therefore, he was wary of hurting the Ye family's people. When the distance between the two was too far and he could avoid the arrow, Yi Xing would not shoot. And when the distance was close, it would be time for Baotian to take Yi Xing's life. Little bastard, I'm here to take your dog life. Baotian walked into the square from the Ye family's direction, and his voice was full of murderous intent. Yi Xing turned around and opened his eyes. He was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he said indifferently, Baotian, do you dare to make a bet with me? Yi Xing's calmness surprised Baotian. He continued to walk forward and approached Yi Xing. He said, What are we betting on? Yi Xing said, Our life and death is already in the outcome of the duel. If we want to bet, then it's naturally something other than life and death. If I win, let me go to the Xiong family's martial arts library to watch martial arts for 4 hours. If you win, I will go to your son's memorial tablet and kowtow before I die. How about it? Baotian's eyes flashed. Killing Yi Xing like this was letting him off too easily. If he could kowtow before Xiong Qitsai's memorial tablet and apologize, Bao Tian's heart would naturally be more carefree. And if Yixing won, he could only watch for 4 hours at the Xiong family's martial arts library. Not to mention 4 hours, even if he had a whole day. How much could he remember? Most of the words in the martial arts manuals were bitter and difficult to understand. It was difficult to read the manuals, let alone memorize them. Bao Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He sneered. You still think you have a chance to win? Haha. Since you want to kowtow before my son's memorial tablet and apologize, of course I will agree. Yixing chuckled and said, Bao Tian, just your agreement is not enough. When you die, what if the Xiong family doesn't care about your face and refuses to admit defeat? This bet can only count if the Xiong family head agrees. You. Bao Tian was furious. He wanted to shout, You're courting death. However, the two were in a life and death duel. There was no such thing as courting death. It was already a situation where either you die or I die. On one side of the square, Bao Tian narrowed his eyes. He wanted to see where Yixing's confidence came from. Unfortunately, he couldn't see it and couldn't figure it out. Regarding Yixing's request, Bao Tian didn't think it was too much. Moreover, in his opinion, Yixing was definitely going to die. How could he still have the life to go to the Xiong family's martial arts library to watch martial arts? Bao Tian sneered and said, Well, I promise you. If you can win, not to mention 4 hours, even 6 hours is fine. I'm afraid that you won't have that chance. After listening to Bao Tian's words, Yixing's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a trace of a smile. Looking at Bao Tian, his eyes suddenly became sharp. Your value ends here. You can die now. While speaking, Yixing used the Big Dipper steps and his body suddenly retreated backward. At the same time, he pulled out a black-edge arrow from the quiver like lightning. While his body was retreating, he knocked the arrow on the string and shot the arrow in one breath. Whoosh! When his voice fell, there was a loud sound. It was the black-edge arrow that was shot out from the string and shot toward Bao Tian. Little bastard, die. When Yixing made his move, Bao Tian was also within 10 feet. He also shouted and suddenly used his body movement to rush toward Yixing. He wanted to kill Yixing Clang. When the arrow left the string, it was the time when the sword was unsheathed. With a bright internal strength, the sword qi was extremely sharp. Arrow and sword, one was a long-range attack weapon and the other was a close-range attack weapon. But they had the same characteristics, fast speed and many changes. In such a short distance, the revolving arrow technique's trajectory distortion was useless. The only thing that pursued was speed. It wanted to kill the opponent in the shortest time possible. Therefore, this arrow was straight and fast to the extreme. If Bao Tian did not use his sword, his throat would definitely be pierced in an instant. However, Bao Tian used his sword. Moreover, his sword was also as fast as lightning. Clang! The black edge arrow was split by Bao Tian's sword. In the collision between the arrow and the sword qi, the arrow won, but in the collision between the arrow and the sword won. With a crisp sound, the black edge arrow was split, but Bao Tian's speed did not decrease at all. Like a rock spreading its wings, he continued to chase Yixing. At the same time, with a wave of his sword, his internal strength followed the sword and turned into a bright sword qi, shooting toward Yixing who was 10 feet away. At this moment, Xiong Batian was secretly alarmed. Although his sword strike had sent the arrow flying and his speed wasn't affected, his hands were slightly numb from the impact. This meant that the power contained within the arrow was extremely terrifying and posed a great threat to him. Therefore, he had to fight speed with speed. In the shortest time possible, he killed his way to Yixing's side, making Yixing's bow useless. In this way, he would be able to win. To shoot an arrow, there was the process of taking the arrow, drawing the bow, and shooting. After all, it was not as simple and fast as waving a sword. When Yixing took out the second arrow and was ready to shoot, the bright sword qi was already in front of him. No matter how fast he retreated, he could not be faster than the attack of the sword qi. As a last resort, Yixing could only give up shooting the second arrow. The wind force was integrated into the 7-star steps. His body dodged to the side like lightning, avoiding the attack of the sword qi. In the first moment after dodging, Yixing put the arrow in his hand on the bow and immediately shot toward Bao Tian. Unfortunately, a moment was not a short time for a martial Dao master. Because of that moment of dodging, the distance between the two was suddenly shortened by half, leaving only about 5 feet. Clang! The black edge arrow shot by Yi Xing had just left the bowstring. Before it could fully exert its strength, it was hit by Bao Yan's sword and was sent flying to the distance like a cold star. Little beast, without distance, let's see what use your bow and arrow can be, hee hee. Bao Tian sneered. The sword in his hand rolled up a cold light, and in an instant, it pierced toward Yi Xing's heart. Heart-killing sword. The speed of this sword had reached the extreme. The sharp sword chi condensed into a beam, almost like an arrow, and burst out. Countless warriors were watching the battle between the two with unblinking eyes, and their hearts were extremely nervous. This was not a competition, but a battle of life and death. Every move was aimed at killing the opponent, which made people's hearts pound. The distance between them was too short. Facing the attack of the heart-killing sword, Yi Xing did not have time to use his archery skills. Even with the 7-star steps, it was difficult to avoid the assassination of the sharp sword chi. At this moment, the tiger roared and Yi Xing punched out. His fist, which was wearing an upper-grade weapon, the silver fine silk glove, was invincible. It blasted on the condensed sword chi. Although the sword chi was sharp, its power was not as strong as the sword itself. It was defeated by Yi Xing's punch. However, the sword, which was like lightning, followed closely, with a fierce killing intent, instantly pierced toward him. Without distance, let's see how you can fight with me, ha 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 ha. Bao Tian laughed. Victory was in his hands. Today's recommendation votes are not as good as yesterday's. If there are any brothers who forgot to vote, please remember to vote, thank you. Chapter 87. Whoosh. The treasure sword instantly pierced through the fist and arm. But at this moment, the fist and arm also disappeared. What was stabbed was only an afterimage. The 7-star steps of the manifestation boundary allowed him to change in a small area. Without waiting for Xiong Baoyan's treasure sword to reach him, Yi Xing had already dodged 30 feet away. Xiong Baotian frowned. A cold light flashed, and he slashed out with his sword again. He coldly snorted and said, "Let's see how many of my swords you can dodge with your movement technique." The sword emitted a cold light. It was like a waterfall that endlessly rushed towards Yi Xing. The super brain activated its scanning mode. Xiong Baoyan's every move was within Yi Xing's expectations. In close combat, Yi Xing didn't need to use a bow and arrow. He slung the dragon tendon bow across his body and used the 7-star steps with all his strength to avoid Xiong Baoyan's swordsmanship. The 7-star steps of the manifestation boundary were indeed extraordinary. Xiong Baotian attacked several times in a row, but only the sword energy's sharpness could reach Yi Xing. The sword's body was always half a beat slower. Yi Xing wore silver silk gloves and held a high-grade dagger in his hand. Xiong Baoyan's sword energy's sharpness was forcibly defeated by him. His strength wasn't weak. Just dealing with the sword energy's sharpness was more than enough to spare. In the blink of an eye, over a dozen moves had passed. The martial artists watching were all shocked. Yi Xing's movement technique had reached the acme of perfection. No matter how close Xiong Baotian approached, the distance between the two was always 30 feet. Besides the sword energy's sharpness, which could attack Yi Xing the moment it left his body, the sword's body always had a time difference. Thus, Yi Xing was able to dodge it. However, although the sword energy's sharpness was terrifying, it couldn't do anything to Yi Xing. For a time, the battle between the two fell into a stalemate. This was something that no one had expected. Even Yi Xing was shocked. Even if Yi Xing's 7-star steps had reached the transformation realm, there shouldn't be a situation where Xiong Baotian couldn't even touch the corner of his clothes. Unless Yi Xing had extremely high combat skills and could always predict Xiong Baoyan's attack position in advance. A martial skill was a kind of skill, but it was a specific skill. For example, when the Roaring Tiger Fist was cultivated to perfection, it was only the skill of the Roaring Tiger Fist that had reached perfection. It had nothing to do with other martial skills. However, true combat skills referred to a person's comprehensive reaction ability. It was a comprehensive skill. A person with excellent combat skills would not be weak even if he did not know any martial arts. Furthermore, if one's combat skills were high, it was impossible for them to not know any martial skills. On the contrary, their attainments in all martial skills would be even higher. The most direct difference between martial skills and combat skills was that a superior martial skill could defeat an opponent whose cultivation was higher than oneself, but lower than oneself, while a superior combat skill could defeat an opponent whose strength was higher than oneself. Yi Xing was a martial arts genius with a strong combat ability. It was clear that his combat skills were indeed high. This made Yi Xing's eyes light up. It seemed that Yi Xing's confidence was indeed based on something. However, Yuan was more worried. Even if one's combat skills were high and could defeat an opponent whose strength was higher than oneself, once the difference in strength between the two parties was too great, it would be extremely difficult to achieve victory. The difference in strength between Yi Xing and Xiong Baotian was indeed very big. The strength that Yi Xing had displayed was not considered top-notch among 6th-level martialists, while Xiong Baotian was a genuine 7th-level martial Dao master. At the moment, even though Xiong Baotian had the upper hand, he was still very unhappy. Although Yi Xing had been suppressed by him, he had still been unable to kill Yi Xing, who was only a 5th-level martial Dao master. He hadn't even been injured. To a martial Dao master like Xiong Baotian, this was a very disgraceful thing. This was especially so under the watchful eyes of so many people. This made Xiong Baotian feel even more humiliated. Unfortunately, he had no choice. Yi Xing's reaction speed was too fast. Unless he was exhausted and made a mistake, he simply couldn't get close to Yi Xing. Hide. Let me see how long you can hide. While Violent Bear attacked with his sword, he angrily shouted, "You're only at the 5th level of cultivation. Your inner strength has only been refined to the flesh and blood, not even to the skin. But I am a martial Dao master. When your inner strength is exhausted, see how I deal with you. I'll make you beg for death." The martialists, who had originally had some confidence in Yi Xing because of his outstanding performance, lost all hope in Yi Xing after hearing Xiong Baotian's words. Xiong Baotian was right. How deep was the internal strength of a martial Dao master? Now Yi Xing was being suppressed by Xiong Baotian. When his internal strength ran out, his defeat was inevitable. Perhaps Xiong Baotian's words poked at Yi Xing's worries. As soon as the former's voice fell, Yi Xing's face changed and his breath immediately showed signs of instability. Seeing this, Xiong Baotian sneered and said, "Let's see how long you can last." After only 3 moves, Yi Xing's face was suddenly shocked. It seemed that his internal strength was not enough. After dodging Xiong Baotian's sword, his body suddenly trembled, and there was a momentary pause. Not good. Many people from the Ye family, as well as some martialists who stood on Yi Xing's side, exclaimed. Their faces changed dramatically. The confrontation between the two could be as simple as lightning. At this time, any pause would be a threat. Xiong Baotian really caught Yi Xing's flaw. With a laugh, the sword in his hand emitted a cold light and instantly pierced toward Yi Xing's heart. However, at this time, the corner of Yi Xing's mouth was slightly raised, revealing a trace of a smile. He didn't look like he was lacking internal strength at all. His feet stepped on the 7 stars and his body turned into a phantom. In an instant he moved 3 feet to the side. Xiong Baotian's sword suddenly missed. Without waiting for Xiong Baotian to retract his sword, Yi Xing blocked with the dagger in his hand and pushed outwards. Originally, with Yi Xing's strength, it was impossible for him to contend with Xiong Baotian. However, Yi Xing now followed the force of Xiong Baotian's sword and pushed it. Xiong Baotian's sword was suddenly pushed away by Yi Xing, while Yi Xing's body moved forward and appeared in front of Xiong Baotian. Seeing Yi Xing's trick, Xiong Baotian was furious. However, when Yi Xing moved in front of Xiong Baotian's eyes revealed an excited smile. He was worried that Yi Xing's movements were too fast and he couldn't get close. Now that Yi Xing took the initiative to close the distance between them, wasn't that seeking his own death? Xiong Baotian's left hand turned into a claw and grabbed Yi Xing's shoulder like lightning. Upper-grade martial skill. Bone-shattering claw. If this claw was caught, the bones in Yi Xing's shoulder would definitely be shattered, and he would be restrained by Xiong Baotian, unable to move. At this moment, The Xiong family members were overjoyed and couldn't help but cheer. As for the Ye family members, their expressions changed, and their faces turned ashen. However, Yixing's face still had a confident smile. At the same time that Xiong Baotian grabbed out with the bone-shattering claw, Yixing had already punched out. Upper-grade martial skill, Thousand Shadow Fist. In the blink of an eye, Yixing's arm disappeared, leaving behind only the dense shadows of his fists. Bang! At the critical moment, there was an explosion. Xiong Baotian's body instantly retreated backward, and was sent flying by Yixing's punch. The Thousand Shadow Fist at the large success stage was indeed extraordinary. Xiong Baotian didn't even see Yixing's fist clearly, and was already hit by Yixing's fist. And the bone-shattering claw he grabbed out hadn't even touched Yixing's clothes. At this moment, many martial artists exclaimed and looked at Xiong Baotian, who was sent flying by Yixing with faces full of disbelief. A 7th-grade martial Dao master was actually sent flying by Yixing in a head-on battle. How was this possible? This sudden change shocked the hearts of all the martial artists present. Xiong Baotian, who had been sent flying, was not only filled with humiliation, but also regret. He had been tricked by Yixing once again. If he hadn't been so impatient with his attack just now, and instead had kept a backup move, then it would have been impossible for him to not be able to pull back his sword. And if he had withdrawn his sword, he wouldn't have been hit by Yixing's punch. No matter how fast Yixing's fist was, it couldn't be faster than his sword. Unfortunately, it was all too late. Yixing deliberately showed a flaw in order to block Xiong Baotian's sword. Xiong Baotian fell for it, and immediately stepped into Yixing's chain of killing moves. At the same time as the punch sent Xiong Baotian flying, Yixing's body also used the 7-star steps to retreat with the recoil force. Moreover, Yixing immediately threw away the dagger in his hand, and took out the dragon tendon bow and black edge arrow. Drawing the bow and shooting the arrow only took a blink of an eye. The power of Yixing's punch wasn't focused on hurting people, but on pushing them away. Xiong Baotian was sent flying by Yixing's punch. Whoosh! When Yixing shot the black edge arrow, Xiong Baotian was still floating in the air. At this time, Xiong Baotian had nowhere to borrow strength and nowhere to hide. Moreover, Yixing's arrow only pursued speed and power without any distortion in its trajectory. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of him. Xiong Baotian didn't have time to use his inner strength to split the arrow. He could only hold his sword horizontally and block the arrow. If he was standing on the ground, Xiong Baotian could completely rely on his legs to take the arrow's power without taking half a step back. Even so, he did not have any place to borrow strength from as he was in the air. Even though he managed to block the arrow, the force from the arrow caused him to fly backward even faster. In the blink of an eye, Xiong Baotian flew back another 100 feet. At this time, the distance between the two was more than 200 feet. Seeing Xiong Baotian fly back, the warriors watching from the back naturally scattered to the sides, leaving a large space. Yixing no longer retreated. His legs bent into a bow and firmly planted into the ground. At the same time, he took out 3 black edge arrows and knocked them on the bowstring. Whoosh! 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 Just as Xiong Baotian was about to land, Yixing released 3 arrows. The 3 black edge arrows drew different distorted trajectories in the air, but they all had the same target, Xiong Baotian. The arrows that contained the power of the wind were extremely fast. Moreover, their trajectories were mysterious and unpredictable. This was Yixing's true killing move. At this time, Xiong Baotian's situation was exactly the same as that of the masked assassin. How could he block Yixing's arrows? Clang! Clang! Xiong Baotian used all his strength and waved his sword to form a sword screen that densely covered the surroundings. However, he was only able to block 2 black edge arrows. However, Yixing shot a total of 3 arrows. Xiong Baotian, who had just landed, felt a pain in his chest. He looked down and saw a blood-stained black arrow piercing through his heart. This black edge arrow shot through Xiong Baotian's back and out of his chest, piercing through his heart. Chapter 88. Impossible. Blood gushed out of Xiong Baotian's mouth as he spat out those words in disbelief. Then his body fell backward dead. All the martial artists present, regardless of their cultivation, were incomparably shocked. their eyes filled with shock. Most of the martial artists had thought that Xiong Baotian would definitely win this battle, and Yi Xing would definitely die. However, the result was the complete opposite. Xiong Baotian, as a martial Dao master, had reigned supreme in Tiansong City for decades. In the end, he had fallen at the hands of a rank 5 junior. This was truly unexpected and shocking. In an instant, cries of surprise rang out everywhere. The Ye family members, on the other hand, let out a burst of enthusiastic cheers. Although this result was truly unbelievable, and the Ye family members were also incomparably shocked, the joy in their hearts was even more intense. Good. 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 Yi Wendao shouted the word good 3 times in a row, his emotions incomparably emotional. He had hoped that Yi Xing would win this battle. However, from the beginning, Yi Wendao had very little confidence in Yi Xing. Now that Xiong Baotian had died, his wish had finally been fulfilled. Naturally, he was incomparably excited. Compared to the joy of the Ye family members, the Xiong family members were filled with shock and worry. Their expressions changed drastically, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. They dared not believe that Xiong Baotian, a martial Dao master, would actually be shot to death by a rank 5 junior. Furthermore, it wasn't a sneak attack. The two of them had fought head-on before. However, Xiong Baotian had died, and his corpse was right in front of them. They had no choice but to believe it. Looking at Yi Xing, who was standing with his Bao, the Xiong family members were all enraged, especially Xiong Baolong and the other Xiong family members. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. If looks had killing intent, Yi Xing would have been cut to pieces by now. It wasn't easy for a family to produce a martial Dao master. Regardless of which family it was, it would take at least 10 years, or even 20 years, for a martial Dao master to appear. The death of any one of them was a heavy blow to the family. How could the Xiong family members not be angry? However, what made the Xiong clan even angrier was yet to come. At this moment, Yi Xing smiled at Tyrannical Bear. His smile was like the spring breeze, proving that he was in a very good mood. Xiong family head, Xiong Baotian has lost. The Xiong family should fulfill their promise, and let me enter the martial pavilion to study martial arts for 4 hours. Xiong Baolong's breathing was ragged, and his fists were clenched so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. His face alternated between green and white, and the fury in his eyes was about to burst out. The Xiong family's martial Dao master had been shot to death by Yi Xing. Now the Xiong family wanted to open the martial pavilion and let Yi Xing in to view the martial arts. Where would the Xiong family put their face? Previously, Violent Bear thought that Violent Bear would win for sure, and Yi Xing wouldn't have a chance. Therefore, he didn't think that Yi Xing's condition was problematic. However, Tyrannical Bear now understood that Yi Xing's request was an insult to the Xiong family's reputation. It was as if he had stepped on the Xiong family and spat out a mouthful of phlegm. Yi Xing took in Violent Bear's expression and sneered. What? Could it be that Xiong family head has forgotten what you promised? Haha. All the martial Dao friends here still remember it very clearly. That's right, we still remember it. A bet is a bet. Since the Xiong family has lost, they must let young Master Yi enter the martial pavilion. Someone in the crowd shouted and took the opportunity to kick up a fuss. They couldn't wait for the Xiong family to lose face. The Xiong family had taken root in Azure Sky City for a long time and had oppressed countless martial Dao families and martial Dao cultivators. Now was the best time to kick them while they were down. Anyway, there was a sea of people at the moment. How would the Xiong family know who was shouting in the crowd? With one person starting, it was like opening a dam. Behind him, more people took the opportunity to shout and humiliate the Xiong family. Violent Bear's veins were bulging. He didn't know who was kicking up a fuss, but all his anger and hatred fell on Yi Xing. His eyes flickered, containing a terrifying murderous intent. At this moment, Violent Bear couldn't wait to charge into the square and tear Yi Xing into pieces. However, no matter how angry he was, he didn't dare to really do it. Grandmaster Mu Feng from the Zishan Marquis residence was watching from the pavilion beside the square. If he dared to make a move on Yi Xing, then his death would come. Moreover, even without Grandmaster Mu Feng, just based on the terrifying strength Yi Xing had displayed, it wouldn't be easy for Violent Bear to kill him. Not to mention the head of the Ye family, Yi Wendao, was here. It was impossible for Violent Bear to succeed. Therefore, no matter how angry Violent Bear was, he could only burn it in his heart. Even if his teeth were broken, he could only swallow it. He couldn't do anything to Yi Xing. Violent Bear gritted his teeth and said, "Come to the Xiong family tomorrow at 7 in the morning. You can stay in the Marshall Pavilion for 4 hours from 7 to 9. There was still plenty of time today. Why did he have to go tomorrow at 7 in the morning? He was afraid that by tomorrow at 7 in the morning, some of the Xiong family's secret martial arts manuals would have already been hidden in the Marshall Pavilion. The ones Yi Xing could see were all secret martial arts manuals in the Ye family's Marshall Pavilion. Yi Xing smiled faintly and said, "Haha, Patriarch Xiong, if the Xiong clan empties the Marshall Pavilion today, do you think I'll go hungry tomorrow? Wouldn't that be a wasted trip?" Yi Xing's smile disappeared and his expression became serious. He continued, "If you want to take a look, you naturally have to take a look now. Only by going immediately would the Xiong family not have time to move the secret martial arts manuals in the Marshall Pavilion." Violent Bear was trembling with anger and almost lost his mind. He shouted angrily, "Yi Xing, my Xiong family has already made enough concessions. Don't be greedy and push me too far. If you want to enter my Xiong family's Marshall Pavilion now, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave alive." Yi Xing laughed. Violent Bear's words did not make him feel threatened at all. He said, "I've been accepted by Master Mu as a student of the Purple Mountain Academy's genius class. I'd like to see how your Xiong family will let me enter alive and not leave alive." Violent Bear's expression froze when he heard this. Just now, his anger had attacked his heart, and his words were unwise. Sure enough, it was not only Yi Xing who was disdainful of his words. There were even some martial artists in the crowd who loudly jeered. "The Xiong family is so arrogant. They can kill a student of the Purple Mountain Academy's genius class just because they want to. Do they even put the Purple Mountain Academy in their eyes? Not only do they not put the Purple Mountain Academy in their eyes, young Master Yi was accepted by Master Mu of the Purple Mountain Marquis residence as a student of the genius class. Now that Master Mu is still in Celestial Azure City, they don't put Master Mu in their eyes." Xiong Baolong's expression immediately changed and his face turned pale. He immediately felt a sharp gaze coming from the pavilion at the edge of the square and locking onto him. Violent Bear glanced at the loft at the edge of the square. Mu Feng was indeed standing at the window, coldly staring at him. This made Violent Bear's body suddenly turn cold and he shivered. "Mr. Mu, please calm down." Violent Bear hurriedly bowed to Mu Feng and said respectfully, "I was angry and made a slip of the tongue. What I said just now was definitely not my intention. Even if you gave me 10,000 guts, I wouldn't dare to do such a thing." Mu Feng's voice came with a trace of coldness. "It's good that you know. Now bring Yi Xing to the Marshall Pavilion. If he loses a single hair, the Xiong family will cease to exist in Celestial Azure City." Yes, I will follow Mr. Mu's orders." Violent Bear bowed to Mu Feng again. When he looked at Yi Xing, even if he was extremely unwilling, he didn't dare to show any malicious intent to Yi Xing. Violent Bear's body was taken care of by the Xiong family. Yi Xing returned to the Xiong family with Violent Bear and the rest at the first moment, and went straight to the Xiong family's Martial Pavilion. He didn't give the Xiong family any chance to transfer the martial arts manuals. Moreover, after entering the Martial Pavilion, Yi Xing went straight to the third floor. He first collected all the upper-grade martial arts manuals, then went to the second floor and collected all the middle-grade martial arts manuals. He moved them all to the first floor and slowly read them. In about 2 hours, Yi Xing had read through all the martial arts manuals in the Xiong family's Martial Pavilion. Because many of the lower and middle-grade martial arts manuals were similar to those in the Ye family's Martial Pavilion, Yi Xing skipped over those that were duplicated and saved a lot of time. All the martial arts manuals that he had read once were scanned and stored in his super brain, so that he could never forget them. Yi Xing had already achieved his goal. Without waiting for 4 hours to pass, he left the Xiong family's Martial Pavilion, and left with a hearty laugh. Everyone in the Xiong family looked at Yi Xing's back as he left. Their faces were filled with hatred, but None of them dared to attack Yixing. They could only watch as Yixing left. Patriarch, our Xiong family has suffered such a huge loss. Our dignity has been trampled on, and we have lost a lot of face. Are we just going to let it go like this? A few high-ranking elders gathered in front of Violent Bear, and said unwillingly. Violent Bear's eyes flashed and he growled in a low voice, "Let it go? How can we let it go like this? Right now he has Mufeng protecting him, but Mufeng can only protect him for a while. Once he enters the Purple Mountain Academy, he will no longer have anything to do with Mufeng." Violent Bear's eyes narrowed and his voice became more and more ruthless. "Originally, I didn't want to cause trouble for the strange saint in the Purple Mountain Academy. But now we can no longer stop this little bastard from entering the Purple Mountain Academy. We can only rely on the strange saint to deal with him in the Purple Mountain Academy. I will write a letter to the strange saint, telling him that once this little bastard enters the Purple Mountain Academy, he will never return." An elder who had been to the Purple Mountain Academy nodded and said, "Although the Purple Mountain Academy is the cradle of the strong, how can there not be a few deaths every year? With the strange saint's identity as the vice principal's personal disciple, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with this little bastard." Today's matter was not only witnessed by countless warriors, but also spread through the entire Azure Sky City at an extremely fast speed. If one were to judge the most famous warrior in Azure Sky City, it wouldn't be the city lord, Gut Sangnan, nor would it be the patriarchs of the Yi Wei and Xiong families who were at the 7th level of the martial path. It would be the elite of the younger generation who was only at the 5th level of the martial path, Yixing. Before, Wei Qingxuan's reputation had always been above Yixing's in Azure Sky City. But now even a genius with such potential like Wei Qingxuan's reputation couldn't be compared to Yixing's. Yixing's name was spreading through Celestial Azure City at an extremely fast speed. It probably wouldn't be long before he became a figure that everyone in Celestial Azure City knew. He would become a legend of his generation. Please pay attention to Lord Chocolate. Everyone. Wei. Letter. Account. Number. EK Chocolate. From tomorrow onwards, I will be on Wei. The letter will update the portrait of the character in the book. Tomorrow it will be Wei Qingxian. Chapter 89. The Ye family in Celestial Firmament City was celebrating. Yixing had already become an important figure in the Ye family when he was selected by Mu Fengshou as a student of the Zishan Academy's genius class. Now his status had become even more important. Even the elders of the family had to be polite and respectful to him. This was something he didn't feel when he was a student of the genius class. Previously, he was an important figure in the family because of his identity as a student of the genius class. Now it was because of his strength that could kill a martial master. In the Star Continent, the strong were respected. One's own strength was what earned the most respect and reverence. That night, Yixing wrote some of the important martial arts manuals in the Ye family's martial pavilion into books and handed them to the family head, Yi Wendao, to be kept in the Ye family's martial pavilion. From now on, the Xiong family's martial arts advantage would no longer exist. Whatever the Xiong family had, the Ye family had. Whatever the Ye family had, the Xiong family might not have. Yixing didn't sleep the whole night. In the morning he meditated for 2 hours and didn't feel tired. Today was the day he left Celestial Firmament City with Mu Fengshou. There were 3 people from the Ye family entering the Zishan Academy. Other than Yixing, there was also Yi Yunlong and Yi Yundai. The family head Yi Wendao personally led the 3 of them to the City Lord's mansion. Among the 10 people from Celestial Firmament City entering the Zishan Academy, other than the 3 from the Ye family, there were 3 from the Wei family. They were Wei Qingxian, Wei Qingyan, and Wei Qingzhou. 1 from the City Lord's mansion was Gu Yijian. 2 from the Xiong family were Xiong Qikai and Xiong Qiyu. The last one was an ordinary family disciple, Zhao Chong. Originally, the 2 from the Xiong family were supposed to be Xiong Qifeng and Xiong Qikai. However, Xiong Qifeng was crippled by Yixing. The 10 juniors gathered together and separated into small groups. The juniors of the Yi clan and Xiong clan were the furthest apart and looked at each other with hatred. Wei Qingxian. Yixing. Yixing smiled. Yi Yunlong, Wei Qingyan, and the other juniors of the Yi and Wei families all smiled knowingly. They could see that the relationship between Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian was not ordinary. Mufeng. The city lord's mansion had already arranged a beast carriage for the 10 Zishan Academy students. As for Mufeng, he had his own beast carriage, which was of a higher grade than the one in the city lord's mansion. The beast carriage of the city lord's mansion was pulled by mid-level vicious beasts, while Mufeng's beast carriage was pulled by high-level vicious beasts. The decorations on the carriage were naturally more luxurious. Yi Xing. Wei Qingxian. You two come with me. Mufeng instructed before boarding the carriage. Thus, Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian followed Mufeng and sat in the front carriage, while the other 8 juniors sat in the back carriage. Before Yi Xing boarded the carriage, he scanned the carriage driver and found that he was a 7th-level martial Dao master. He couldn't help but secretly exclaim, "The Zishan Marquis mansion was indeed extraordinary." Even the carriage driver was a martial Dao master. On the contrary, the carriage driver of the city lord's mansion was much inferior. He was only a 5th-level martial Dao master. Yi Xing remembered that when he went from Qingye village to the main Ye family in Azure Sky City, he rode a horse carriage and the carriage driver was a 3rd-level martial disciple. Qingye village's Ye family, the city lord's mansion, and the Zishan Marquis mansion were 3 different forces. The difference between them could be seen clearly just by looking at the transportation and carriage drivers. The distance between Azure Sky City and Azure Sky City was very far. It was at least 5 times the distance between Qingye village and Azure Sky City. If they rode a horse carriage, it would take 5 days, but if they rode a beast carriage, it would only take a day and a half. This was because the city lord's mansion's beast carriage was only pulled by mid-level vicious beasts, which slowed down the speed. If it was only the Zishan Marquis mansion's beast carriage, it would take less than a day to reach Azure Sky City from Azure Sky City to Azure Sky City. The Zishan Marquis mansion's beast carriage was luxuriously decorated. Yi Xing and the other 2 sat inside and the space seemed very spacious. Mufeng asked the 2 of them, "What are your dreams?" After he finished speaking, he looked at Yi Xing first. Yi Xing himself had thought about this question countless times. He said, "I want to become an expert and become a martial saint. I want to stand at the peak of the martial path and take a look." Wei Qingxian nodded, "Me too. Martial saint, the peak of the martial path." Mufeng smiled faintly saying, "When you reach the Zishan Academy and come into contact with more martial arts knowledge, you will know that the martial path is broad and profound, far beyond your imagination." After a pause, Mufeng continued, "It is a good thing that you have such a pure martial heart. I hope that you can keep it up and not be defeated by reality." Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian nodded, their gazes firm. Both of them had a very strong martial heart. Mufeng felt the youthful vigor from the 2 and revealed a satisfied smile, saying, "Wei Qingxian, you were able to reach the peak of the 5th level at the age of 14. With such talent, even in the entire Zishan County, no one can compare to you. Your destiny is definitely not low." Yi Xing's heart trembled. The number of stars in the celestial Azure City's younger generation's destiny was not a secret. However, Yi Xing had never heard of Wei Qingxuan's destiny before. Wei Qingxian was silent for a moment, then said, "Disciple is a 9-star destiny." 9-star destiny. Yi Xing secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder Wei Qingxuan's cultivation speed was so fast. She was actually a 9-star destiny. The legend of the Ye family's history, Yi Tianjue, was only an 8-star destiny. The monstrous junior of the Xiong family who entered the Zishan Academy's genius class, Xiong Qixing, was also only an 8-star destiny. In the history of Celestial Azure City, no one had ever heard of a 9-star destiny. Mufeng was not surprised at all. As if Wei Qingxuan's 9-star destiny was a matter of course. Mufeng said, "Your family's blood fate stone's grade is too low. At most, it can only measure a 9-star destiny. Your destiny may not only be 9 stars." Before Wei Qingxian could say anything, Yi Xing exclaimed, "Could it be that the 9-star destiny is not the highest?" Mufeng knew why Yi Xing's emotions were fluctuating. He chuckled and said, "That's right. A 9-star destiny can naturally cultivate to the 9th level of the martial scholar realm. However, if one wants to cultivate to the martial saint realm, one needs luck. However, those with a higher destiny can naturally cultivate to the martial saint realm. For example, Zishan Marquis, he cultivated to the martial saint realm at the age of 17. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian sucked in a breath of cold air. A 17-year-old martial saint? The two of them instantly thought of the red-clothed girl they met in the Azure Cloud Mountain range. She was also 17 or 18 years old. Wasn't she also a martial saint? It seemed that she was the same as Zishan Marquis, possessing a destiny that surpassed the 9-star destiny. Her cultivation process did not have any bottlenecks, and she naturally cultivated to the martial saint realm. Yi Xing furrowed his brows. He had always thought that a 9-star fate mandate was the highest, which was why his 2-star fate mandate was the worst. Only now did he know that a 9-star fate mandate wasn't the limit, so his 2-star fate mandate was even worse. This made Yi Xing speechless. The original owner's aptitude was so poor that it angered both man and God. Fortunately, his astrology was extraordinary. Otherwise, his cultivation would be very difficult. Mu Feng noticed the change in Yi Xing's expression and said, "I've heard that you're a 2-star heaven's mandate, but don't be discouraged because of this. You killed a 7th-stage martial Dao master, when you're only at the 5th stage. This battle prowess is unique in the Zishan County. A person's aptitude is not only limited to heaven's mandate, but also the astrology." Hearing Mu Feng talk about astrology, Yi Xing immediately perked up his ears. His knowledge of astrology was almost zero. He could only rely on his intuition to know that his astrology was extraordinary. Speaking of which, the importance of astrology is not inferior to destiny. In fact, it might even surpass it. However, astrology will only manifest when you sense the power of the stars for the first time. There are very few people who understand astrology, so it's impossible to judge the level of astrology based on the manifested astrology. This information was useless, which made Yi Xing a little disappointed. However, Mu Feng's next words made Yi Xing's spirit rise. If you want to know the level of astrology, you have to cultivate to martial saint realm and awaken your astrology. After that, martial saints can use the power of astrology. A martial saint with a powerful astrology is extremely terrifying. Yi Xing's eyes lit up. After cultivating to martial saint realm, one's astrology would awaken, and they would be able to use the power of astrology. He was very confident in his astrology. Therefore, if he became a martial saint, he would definitely be a powerful martial saint. This made Yi Xing look forward to cultivating to martial saint even more. He secretly decided that he must cultivate to martial saint realm as fast as possible. 1 year. At most 1 year and I will become a martial saint. Zishan Ho and the red-clothed lady had both become martial saints at a young age. Yi Xing saw them as his goals. A year later, Yi Xing became a martial saint at the age of 17. He was about the same age as Zishan Ho and the red-clothed lady. Yi Xing, your heavenly fate realm is very low, but your cultivation is not slow. It can be seen that your astrology is better than most cultivators. Your battle prowess is extraordinary. If you become a martial saint one day and awaken your astrology, you will definitely amaze the world. Mu Feng stated his judgment of Yi Xing. He was quite optimistic about Yi Xing's future. However, he also sighed and said, "It is extremely difficult for a low heavenly fate realm cultivator to become a martial saint. I hope you will have the opportunity." After saying this, Mu Feng stopped talking with the two. He indicated for them to rest, and then closed his eyes and sat down. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian exchanged glances. They could see the admiration and encouragement in each other's eyes. They even seemed to have an unspoken agreement to become strong together and become martial saints. After that, the two also closed their eyes and rested. Yi Xing did not stay idle. A simulated human figure appeared in his superbrain, and he started to cultivate the martial techniques he had learned in the Xiong family's martial pavilion yesterday. Yi Xing had a feeling that the more martial techniques he cultivated, the more he understood them. Then his attainments in martial techniques would be higher, and it would be easier for him to cultivate to the martial saint realm. The journey was peaceful. At noon the next day, Yi Xing and the others arrived at Zishan County City and headed straight for Zishan Academy. Forcefully promote. Why is there no improvement in the recommendation votes? Chocolate cried and begged his brothers and sisters for a recommendation vote. Can he make it to the top? Chapter 90. The Indigo Mountain Academy was located 3 miles east of the Indigo County City. Every 3 years, the Indigo Mountain Academy would recruit a new batch of students, and these students would study in the Indigo Mountain Academy for 6 years. Every batch would be divided into 11 classes, 10 ordinary classes and 1 genius class. Each class had 70 students, and there were no changes. After graduating, the students would return to their hometowns. Those who performed well could work in the Indigo Mountain Academy, or be recruited into the Indigo Marquee Manor. Yi Xing's batch of students who entered the academy were elementary students. The previous batch's students were automatically promoted to advanced students, and the previous batch's advanced students would graduate and leave. Mu Feng sent Yi Xing's group to the Indigo Mountain Academy, and there were naturally people from the academy to receive them. Yi Xing, you're a 2-star heavenly fate realm, and you'll be criticized in the genius class. The Indigo Mountain Academy isn't like other places, so you have to be patient, and don't be arrogant. There's no need to pay attention to the rumors. Before Mu Feng left, he reminded Yi Xing. However, I'm not asking you to be a coward. A cultivator's dignity cannot be sullied, and the academy has its own rules. If someone breaks the rules to deal with you, feel free to retaliate. Your potential will definitely attract the attention of the Indigo Marquee, and if you're treated unfairly, the Marquee will not sit idly by. Many thanks, Master Mu. Yi Xing cupped his fists, feeling grateful in his heart. Mu Feng's job was to recruit students from Azure Sky City and escort them to the Indigo Mountain Academy. Now that his job was done, he naturally left. The 10 people from Azure Sky City were divided into 2 groups. Yi Yunlong and 8 other ordinary class students were brought away by a 7th-level martial Dao master. As for Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian, they were brought away by an 8th-level martial Dao master. Both of them were deacons of the academy, responsible for the discipline of the students. The 7th-level martial Dao master was the ordinary class deacon, and the 8th-level martial Dao master was the deacon of the Tiandu class. In the Indigo Mountain Academy, other than deacons, there were teachers, and they were 1 level higher than deacons. The deacons of the ordinary class were 7th-level martial Dao masters, while the teachers were 8th-level martial Dao masters. The deacons of the genius class were 8th-level martial Dao masters, while the teachers were 9th-level martial Dao masters. A portion of the upper management of the academy were teachers from the genius class. There were also a few who weren't in charge of teaching. They were the vice deans, and they were the highest level of the academy. Of course, strictly speaking, the highest authority should be Zishan Ho, because he was the dean of the Purple Mountain Academy. However, Zishan Ho rarely interfered with the affairs of the academy, so the ones in charge were the vice deans. Yi Xing, this is your student identity card. The number on it is your seat number in class and your room number. Wei Qingxian, this is yours. The Grand Master Deacon brought Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian to the front of a building and gave each of them a card. Both of their cards had the words Genius Class written on the front and different numbers on the back. One was 46 and the other was 47. There were a total of 70 people in the gifted class, so this card was definitely given out according to the order of registration. Those who were from the county capital would definitely be the first to arrive. Those 30 people would definitely be the first 30. As for the other cities, whoever arrived first would receive the card with the higher number. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian didn't arrive too late. It could be seen that Tiansong City wasn't the furthest from the county capital. There were some cities even further away. The dormitories of the common class were 4 people sharing a room, while the genius class dormitories were 1 person per room. Therefore, the dormitories of the genius class didn't discriminate between males and females. Yi Xing was in room 46, while Wei Qingxian was in room 67. They should be next to each other. Your rooms are protected by a formation. Your identity card is the key to open the door. Today is the registration day. Go back to your rooms and rest. The Grand Master Deacon instructed the two of them and left. Yixing looked at the building in front of him. It was divided into 7 floors, and each floor had 10 rooms. On the opposite side of this building, there was another building that was almost identical except for the color. Each floor had 10 rooms, and there were 7 floors in total. Academy, tall building. This made Yixing sigh with emotion. He thought of his student days on Earth. However, the tall building in front of him had a strong ancient style, and didn't have the slightest hint of modernity. It didn't give Yixing the wrong impression, and he quickly put away his emotions. Everything in the past was already a distant memory. The world he was in now was the most important. I wonder what this martial arts academy is like. Yixing thought to himself with a faint smile on his face. No matter what, he had already become a student of the Purple Mountain Academy's genius class. He was in a good mood today. Let's go up. Wei Qingxuan's voice came from the side. Yixing nodded, and the two of them walked up to the dormitory. The two of them walked to the staircase. Just as they were about to go up, the sound of hooves came from afar. Stop! A cold shout came. Yixing and Wei Qingxian turned around and saw several people in the distance. They were all young people around 18 or 19 years old. They were riding demon horses that were half the size of ordinary horses, and were rushing towards them. The speed of these demon horses was very fast. They rushed to the front of the two in a few breaths. Some of them slowed down, but one of them didn't slow down and continued to rush towards Yixing and Wei Qingxian. Yixing's eyes narrowed. The person on the horse had a murderous intent towards him. The demon horse was tall and was a mid-level vicious beast. It rushed over with an intimidating aura. It was extremely frightening. Wei Qingxian was affected and couldn't help but take half a step back. At this time, Yixing took a step forward and blocked in front of Wei Qingxian. His expression didn't change. As a student of the Purple Mountain Academy, he was very sure that no one would dare to directly ride a horse and injure him. Hiss! Sure enough, when the demon horse was a meter away from him, the person on the horse pulled the reins. The demon horse let out a long neigh and instantly stood up. After 2 breaths, the demon horse raised its 2 front hooves and stomped on the ground in front of Yixing. It made a loud thud. The horse's head was a foot in front of Yixing. The hot breath from the horse's nose directly rushed to Yixing's face, but Yixing's expression didn't change. He wasn't afraid at all. Yixing had his super brain scanning. If the demonic horse didn't stop, he was confident that he could take Wei Qingxian away the moment it crashed into them. But if the demonic horse stopped, he calculated that the demonic horse couldn't hurt him. Of course, he wasn't scared at all. The young man on the horse was the youngest among them. He shouldn't be more than 19 years old. Yixing's expression didn't change. He was slightly surprised, but it was immediately replaced by a fierce look. He glared at Yixing. His voice was cold and filled with killing intent. He shouted, "You're Yixing?" Yixing nodded slightly. He looked at the man on the horse and said, "You're Xiong Qixing?" Yixing didn't know anyone in the Purple Mountain Academy, but this person looked at him with killing intent. It was obvious that he had a death grudge with him. It could only be Xiong Qixing. Xiong Qixing had a good relationship in the Purple Mountain Academy. When the younger generation from Azure Sky City arrived, he received the news. Then he rushed to the genius class dormitory. When Yixing and Wei Qingxian went upstairs, he just arrived. Xiong Qixing glared at Yixing and said, "Little bastard, I finally see you. What you did to my Xiong family, I will return it to you tenfold. I will make you die without a burial place." Facing Xiong Qixing's threat, Yixing smiled indifferently and said, "Little bastard, who are you scolding?" Xiong Qixing shouted, "Little bastard scolding you." Just as he finished speaking, Xiong Qixing felt that something was wrong. Yixing was already holding his stomach and laughing. "Little bastard scolding me, ha ha ha." Wei Qingxian, who was behind Yixing, couldn't help but let out a bell-like laughter. As for the other young people on the back of the demon horses, they held back their laughter and didn't dare to laugh out loud. Xiong Qixing's imposing aura was completely dispersed by Yixing's laughter. Xiong Qixing, who was on the horse, no longer felt high and mighty. Instead, he felt like a clown. This made Xiong Qixing extremely angry. He snorted and said, Laugh all you want. Sooner or later, I will make you kneel in front of me and cry. Yixing also sneered and said disdainfully, with just you? Xiong Qixing's eyes were cold. He said, you dare to look down on me? Facing Xiong Qixing's oppressive aura, Yixing was like a spring breeze. His expression was normal, and he still looked disdainful. You've been in the Zishan Academy for 3 years, and you're only at the 7th level of cultivation. May I ask, are you worthy of my respect? Xiong Qixing shouted angrily. Since you look down on me so much, do you dare to fight with me on the life and death arena? Yixing was surprised. Xiong Qixing looked reckless, but he was actually quite scheming. His method of pretending to be angry was also a form of provocation. The life and death arena was a place where life and death would be determined as soon as one stepped on it. Xiong Qixing obviously wanted to provoke Yixing into going on the life and death arena. At that time, Yixing's life would be in his hands. However, Xiong Qixing underestimated Yixing too much. Yixing's heart was clear, so how could he be provoked by him? Just as he was about to speak, he felt his palm warm. It was grabbed by a warm and soft hand. Yixing turned his head and saw Wei Qingxian shaking her head at him. At the same time, she withdrew her warm and soft hand. Clearly, she was reminding Yixing not to be provoked by Xiong Qixing. Yixing nodded and smiled at Wei Qingxian. He turned around and said, Xiong Qixing, you're a student of the advanced genius class. Don't you feel ashamed to challenge me? A student of the elementary genius class who just entered the academy. To the life and death arena? If I were you, I'd directly buy a piece of tofu and kill myself. Yixing's words caused Xiong Qixing's expression to become even more gloomy. Without waiting for Xiong Qixing to speak again, Yixing laughed lightly and said disdainfully, however, I really do look down on you. I've entered Zishan Academy for 3 months. In 3 months' time, I'll beat you until you're looking for your teeth on the ground. You won't be able to tell north from south. Xiong Qixing's eyes narrowed. He said coldly, fine, I'll wait for you for 3 months. I'd like to see who's looking for their teeth on the ground after 3 months. And who's the one who won't be able to tell north from south. Go. Xiong Qixing waved to the others and immediately urged his horse to leave. However, after only 30 meters, Xiong Qixing reined in his horse and stopped. He turned around and looked at Yixing. His gaze was disdainful. Genius class student? Haha, you're not worthy, and you're not. Then, Xiong Qixing laughed loudly and urged his horse to leave. He disappeared from Yixing's and Wei Qingxuan's sight. There's a third update tonight. I'm crying for a recommendation vote. Brothers, what do you think of Wei Qingxuan's portrait? I think it's super beautiful. I'm very satisfied. Follow Lord Chocolate. Everyone. Wei. Male EK Chocolate. You can receive portraits of the various characters of the Arrow God from the publishing house. Chapter 91. Xiong Qixing is famous in Azure Sky City, but in reality, he's only SOSO. Wei Qingxian commented as she watched Xiong Qixing's departing figure. 3 years ago, Wei Qingxian was only an 11-year-old girl, while Xiong Qixing was a 15-year-old genius, a proud son of heaven in Azure Sky City. At that time, Wei Qingxian had just started cultivating and had never met Xiong Qixing. She had only heard of Xiong Qixing's fame. Although he was only 15 years old, all the juniors in Azure Sky City under the age of 25 could not raise their heads. Therefore, to Wei Qingxian at that time, Xiong Qixing was a high and mighty existence. Even when Wei Qingxian rose to prominence in Celestial Azure City, and all the cultivators said that she was more talented than Xiong Qixing, she didn't have the slightest intention of belittling Xiong Qixing. However, the current Wei Qingxian, through the conversation with Mu Feng on the way, had broadened her horizons. When she saw Xiong Qixing again, she no longer had the feeling of looking up to him. She felt that Xiong Qixing was ordinary and nothing more. Yixing, on the other hand, had long set the Martial Saint realm as his goal. From the beginning, he did not think that Xiong Qixing was amazing. Now he naturally did not put him in his eyes. He would soon step into the 6th stage of the Martial Dao, while Xiong Qixing had not stepped into the 8th stage of the Martial Dao. It would not be difficult to catch up to him. However, What puzzled Yixing was that when Xiong Qixing left, he said that he was not worthy and was not a student of the gifted class. What did that mean? Wei Qingxian was also not clear about this point. The two of them went upstairs. Rooms 46 and 47 were right next to each other. The two of them smiled at each other and used their identity cards to open the door. Then they entered their respective rooms. Yixing had learned a lot of martial arts from the Xiong family. He needed time to practice and integrate them. After entering the room, he continued to use his super brain to simulate a human form to practice. The first day of entering the academy passed peacefully. The next day, Yixing finally understood what Xiong Qixing meant when he left. That was because the people in charge of recruiting students in the various cities didn't limit the number of people they could recruit. If they found someone good, they would accept them. If they didn't, they wouldn't accept a single one. It just so happened that there were more talented juniors in this batch. The number of students in the genius class had exceeded the quota of 70, reaching 76. In other words, there were 6 more spots. This kind of situation had happened before. That was because Zishan Academy's genius class had a fixed quota of 70 people. Therefore, if there were more than 70 people in the genius class, a few more would be eliminated and transferred to the ordinary class. Similarly, if there were less than 70 spots, it would mean that there were too many spots in the ordinary class. Then a few outstanding students from the ordinary class would be promoted to the genius class. This way, the ordinary class and the genius class would always remain at 770 spots. Yuan Dao had entered Zishan Academy before. He had told Yixing that if the number of students in the genius class exceeded the quota, the weakest few would be eliminated. Most of the students who were recruited into the genius class were in the 6th rank. A small portion of them were in the 5th rank. Therefore, Yixing couldn't be eliminated based on strength. However, the elimination rules had changed this time. This batch of students in the genius class exceeded the quota by 6. Among you, 6 of you will be eliminated from the genius class and transferred to the ordinary class. Mo Xiaocong, a 9th-stage martial scholar and the teacher of Zishan Academy's junior genius class, stood in front of all the students and said with a serious expression, "I heard that the reason why the quota exceeded the quota this time was because some of the students with ordinary or even poor aptitudes used their connections to enter the genius class to fish in troubled waters. The academy is determined to crack down on such people. Therefore, those with low heavenly fate and poor aptitudes will be eliminated first." As he spoke, Mo Xiaocong's gaze swept across the students in the genius class. His gaze paused on Yixing for a moment. Beside Mo Xiaocong, Xiong Qixing was also looking at Yixing with a face full of smiles. At this moment, how could Yixing not understand that Xiong Qixing's method of eliminating people based on heavenly fate and not strength? Xiong Qixing's master was one of the vice principals of Zishan Academy. He did have some ability in the academy. The master-disciple relationship was much closer than the teacher-student relationship. Perhaps the vice principal didn't need to personally make an appearance. Just the fact that Xiong Qixing was the vice principal's personal disciple was enough to make the teacher change a little. Yixing's expression didn't change, but anger had already risen in his heart. The difference between the gifted class and the ordinary class wasn't just in name. There was also a huge difference in the treatment they received. The ordinary class was taught by an 8th-stage martial scholar, while the genius class was taught by a 9th-stage martial scholar. Obviously, the 9th-stage martial scholar had a deeper understanding of martial arts and taught better. However, Yixing didn't care about this. He was better than any teacher. But there was another difference that made Yixing's heart ache. The students of the ordinary class could receive 1 high-grade star accumulating pill per month, while the students of the genius class could receive 2 star accumulating pills per month. The importance of the star accumulating pill was needless to say. It was directly linked to a cultivator's cultivation. Naturally, the more one had, the faster one's cultivation would be. If he was eliminated from the genius class, the number of high-grade star accumulating pills he could receive would be reduced by half. How could he not be angry? Although he knew that the other party was deliberately targeting him, it was related to his interests. Yixing had to argue and said, "Teacher Mo, I heard that the school's previous rule is to eliminate people based on their strength. Mo Xiaozong nodded with a smile and said, "This student is right. Aptitude is important, but so is strength. So if a student is eliminated because of a low heaven's fate, he can prove his strength if he thinks he is strong." Speaking of this, Mo Xiaozong introduced Xiong Qixing next to him. "This is Xiong Qixing, a student of the Advanced Genius class. He will test the strength of the eliminated students. If Xiong Qixing thinks his strength is qualified, he can continue to join the Genius class." Next to him, Xiong Qixing nodded with a smile, but his eyes were fierce, constantly sweeping over Yixing, F***ck. Yixing suddenly clenched his fists. His heart was burning with anger. He was not joining the Advanced Genius class. How could he compete with Xiong Qixing? Yixing understood that not only did the other party want to force him out of the Genius class, but he also wanted to give him no room to resist. If Yixing insisted that he was strong and should not be eliminated, then he would have to fight with Xiong Qixing. Xiong Qixing's cultivation was at the peak of 7th stage, and Yixing had not stepped into the 6th stage of martial path. Even if he had a bow and arrow, it would be difficult for him to be Xiong Qixing's opponent. Moreover, in a battle of strength, how could Yixing be allowed to use a bow and arrow? Therefore, once they fought, not only would Yixing not be able to enter the Genius class, he would also die miserably. Wei Qingxian was standing next to Yixing. She naturally heard that this elimination plan was targeted at Yixing. Seeing Yixing clenching his fists and his shoulders trembling, it was obvious that he was extremely angry. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Yixing, bear with it for now. After this, go to the Zishan Marquis residence and tell Grandmaster Mufeng about this. Grandmaster Mufeng will not sit idly by. Wei Qingxuan's soft hand held Yixing's fist and whispered in Yixing's ear. Feeling the softness on the back of his hand, Yixing's heart stirred, and his anger immediately dissipated. For some reason, perhaps because he was emotional, Wei Qingxuan's warm and soft hand made Yixing feel at ease. Yixing loosened his fist and naturally grabbed Wei Qingxuan's slender hand. This made the anger in Yixing's heart completely dissipate. This made Yixing understand that when a person was angry, they needed someone close to them to accompany them. Yixing did not look at Wei Qingxian, and Wei Qingxian did not look at Yixing either. However, when the two of them held hands, neither of them flinched, appearing very natural. At this moment, an indescribable feeling spread in the hearts of the two of them. When Xiong Qixing saw Yixing and Wei Qingxuan's actions, the corners of his eyes twitched, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. In the letter that Xiong Baotian gave him, not only did he want him to deal with Yixing, but he also wanted him to be on good terms with Wei Qingxian, and marry Wei Qingxian in the future. In Xiong Qixing's eyes, Wei Qingxian was already his woman. At this moment, when he saw Yixing and Wei Qingxian holding hands, how could he not be angry in his heart? Little bastard, forcing you into the ordinary class is only the first step. I will force you into a dead end step by step. In Celestial Azure City, you are full of glory, but in the Purple Mountain Academy, in front of me, Xiong Qixing, you are just an ant, at my mercy. Xiong Qixing narrowed his eyes as he viciously thought in his heart. Under Mo Xiaozong's supervision, the students in the Genius class tested their heavenly fate one by one. Most of them were 7-star heavenly fate, but there were also some who were 8-star and 6-star heavenly fate. When it was Yixing's turn, he was only a 2-star heavenly fate, which immediately caused a burst of laughter. Those who were able to enter the Purple Mountain Academy's Genius class were all geniuses of their city. Among these geniuses, there were only a few 6-star heavenly fate, and they belonged to the bottom. Yixing's 2-star heavenly fate was even more conspicuous. This 2-star heavenly fate dared to talk about strength earlier, haha. Teacher Mo said that he was the one who relied on the Marquis Manor's connections to enter the Genius class. That's him, right? Hahaha, what a joke. Many students in the Genius class mocked Yixing. Most of them were 8-star heavenly fate, and some were 7-star heavenly fate. They thought that they were peerless geniuses and were ashamed to be in the same class as a 2-star heavenly fate. Even though there were heaven-defying geniuses among low-level heaven's mandate cultivators, the proportion was too small. Not even 1 in 10,000 would be able to rise. Thus, all the geniuses mocked Yixing for being a 2-star heaven's mandate. Wei Qingxian unhappily walked out and said, "You're mocking Yixing's low heavenly fate. Do you think that you're a peerless genius? There's always a taller mountain. How can true talent be judged by heavenly fate alone? Moreover, even if we're talking about heavenly fate, you're only SOSO. What qualifications do you have to mock others?" Wei Qingxian was protecting Yixing, so she couldn't help but change the way she addressed him. This was also the reason why their relationship was getting closer. An 8-star genius saw that Wei Qingxian was with Yixing and instinctively said with disdain, "You're too arrogant. A mere 2-star heavenly fate is thousands of miles away from us. Why can't we mock you? You keep saying that we don't have talent, but how many stars do you have?" Chapter 92. That's right. Who do you think you are? How many stars do you have? Being in the same team as a 2-star heavenly mandate, he should also be a piece of trash. What right does he have to criticize us? The 8-star Destiny Realm cultivators who had just mocked Yixing also mocked him one after another. Yixing was already immune to the mockery of others. He wasn't angry at all, and his expression was normal. However, at this moment, Yixing's face revealed a strange expression. It was one thing for these genius students to mock him, but they actually wanted to mock Wei Qingxian. This time, their faces would probably be slap swollen. When had Wei Qingxian ever been called a piece of trash? Her face immediately turned pale as she placed her hand on the Blood Life Stone. In an instant, the Blood Life Stone glowed and the 9-star slots lit up one after another. The students immediately stopped mocking him. Previously, no one had ever been able to make the Blood Life Stone glow so brightly, or make the star slots light up so quickly. Almost in the blink of an eye, 3 lit up. In the next blink, 6 lit up. In the next blink, 9 lit up. All 9 star slots were lit up. 9-star destiny. Apart from Yixing, who already knew this would happen, all the cultivators present were shocked and dumbfounded. A 9-star Destiny Realm cultivator could cultivate to the 9th stage of the martial path. Basically, they could become a grandmaster before the age of 20, which was a level higher than an 8-star Destiny Realm cultivator. Even though the Violet Mountain Academy was known as the cradle of geniuses, it was rare for a 9-star Heaven's Mandate to appear in each batch. With a higher fate star, one's future achievements would be 1 level higher. Although it was not absolute, it could be said to be absolute. Among 10,000 people, at least 9,999 would be like this. Only the other 1 in 10,000 would be able to surpass those with a higher destiny through luck and fortune. Those with a higher destiny than him were almost negligible. The 8-star Destiny students who mocked Wei Qingxian earlier felt their faces burning. If she was trash, then they were trash among trash. Wei Qingxian recalled what Mu Feng had said. Her heavenly fate might not be limited to 9 stars. Hence, she did not move her hand away when all 9-star slots were lit up. The red light in the 9-star slots of the Blood Life Stone became more and more intense and dazzling. However, there were no other changes. He didn't know if it was because the Blood Fate Stone's grade was too low and couldn't determine a fate beyond 9 stars, or if Wei Qingxuan's fate was only 9 stars. Even if Wei Qingxian was only a 9-star Heaven's Mandate, one could tell from the blinding light that her aptitude might be higher than ordinary 9-star Heaven's Mandates. Looking at the dazzling red light, the hearts of the students changed, and they looked up to Wei Qingxian. From this moment onwards, Wei Qingxian became a popular figure in the junior gifted class. Although Wei Qingxuan's face was covered with a veil and the students couldn't see her face, they automatically imagined Wei Qingxian to be a peerless beauty. The female students were naturally envious and jealous, while the male students were all over the moon and treated Wei Qingxian as their goddess. Wei Qingxuan's 9-star Heaven's Mandate shocked Xiong Qixing too. He stared blankly, which made him even more confident. She's mine. She's mine. I must make her my woman. As for Mo Shoutsong, when he saw the powerful red light, his eyes flashed with shock as he thought of an even more shocking result. Seeing that there were no other changes to the Blood Life Stone, Wei Qingxian lowered her hand in disappointment. Wei Qingxian didn't rush back to the students. Instead, she said to Mo Xiaocang, "Teacher Mo, although I'm a 9-star heavens mandate and my cultivation is higher than Yixing's, my strength can't compare to Yixing's. Yixing's future won't be below mine either. Why can't he be in the gifted class?" This, Mo Xiaocang wanted to refute, but he hesitated when he thought of Wei Qingxuan's aptitude. Mo Xiaocang used to be the top genius of the Indigo Mountain Academy's gifted class. After graduating, he stayed in the academy to work. First, he was a deacon of the gifted class. Later, he broke through to the 9th level and became a teacher of the gifted class. Other than the vice principals, he was also a top figure in the Indigo Mountain Academy. If Wei Qingxian was also a 9-star heavens mandate, he naturally wouldn't hesitate. However, he knew that the Blood Life Stone was of the lowest grade and couldn't test a higher mandate. After Wei Qingxian was tested as a 9-star heavens mandate, the bright red light it emitted was much stronger than his. This made Mo Xiaocang wonder if Wei Qingxuan's mandate had surpassed the 9-star heavens mandate and reached the Martial Saint heavens mandate. If that was the case, then Wei Qingxian was a future Martial Saint. This made Mo Xiaocang apprehensive. Mo Xiaocang had his misgivings, but Xiong Qixing had no misgivings. He already regarded Wei Qingxian as his woman. How could he let Yixing stay in the gifted class? Naturally, he wanted to trample Yixing to death and completely cut off Wei Qingxuan's thoughts. Xiong Qixing said, "Junior Qingxian, you're wrong. You're a 9-star heavens mandate, and your future is bright. He's only a 2-star heavens mandate. Even if he has some good fortune and his strength is greater than yours now, how can he compare to you in the future?" Xiong Qixing said with a smile. He glanced at the other students and continued, "Let alone you, junior sister apprentice Qingxian. Even the other juniors are not comparable to that trash. The students of the gifted class can at least become martial Dao masters in the future, but he?" Xiong Qixing's gaze fell on Yixing, and his tone became extremely disdainful. "Once you've had a fortuitous encounter, it's hard for you to have it a second time. How can you be blessed with providence every time? If he's really lucky and can become a martial Dao master in the future, then he can be accepted into the gifted class. But now, he can't be placed in the gifted class just based on his current strength. He doesn't have that qualification." Xiong Qixing's tone became gloomy. His eyes narrowed and a cold light flashed. He stared at Yixing like a vicious snake and let out a sneer. Unless he can pass my test, then his trash aptitude can be ignored, and he can continue to be a student of the gifted class. Yixing, do you have the guts to let me test your strength?" Everyone looked at Yixing. They could tell from Xiong Qixing's tone that Xiong Qixing was targeting Yixing. If Yixing dared to accept the challenge, he would definitely be beaten up badly. Xiong Qixing tried his best to make Yixing take the initiative to fight with him, but Yixing wouldn't fall for it. He smiled indifferently and said, "I'd better go to the ordinary class. But don't worry, even if I'm in the ordinary class, it'll be easy for me to beat you in 3 months." Yixing wasn't afraid of making a big deal out of it. Only a few people knew about the 3-month agreement yesterday, but today he wanted everyone to know. "Didn't you want to step on me? Then I'll step on you to death." A student of the elite class, an 8-star heavens mandate realm genius, was defeated by a new student who just entered the academy for 3 months. Let's see where you'll put your face at that time. You forced me to go to the ordinary class. When the time comes, the ordinary class new student will defeat you in 3 months. It'll only make you look more like a failure. Yixing thought in his heart. He didn't have the thought of going to the Marquis's mansion to report this matter to Grandmaster Mufeng. If he needed to find connections and rely on others to solve a small problem, it would only prove his incompetence. So what if he was in the ordinary class? Although it was less than half of the star accumulating pill, Yixing believed that he wouldn't stay in the ordinary class for long. When he defeated Xiong Qixing in front of everyone, the academy would invite him back to the elite class. Otherwise, if a student from the ordinary class was above the elite class, everyone would say that the academy was blind. Yixing didn't accept the challenge, which made Xiong Qixing very depressed. As a student of the elite class, he couldn't deal with Yixing for no reason. If he did, he would be cursed as a senior bullying a junior. The Indigo Mountain Academy was very particular about its reputation. Therefore, without a suitable excuse, he really couldn't harm Yixing's life. He could only suppress Yixing, but at most he could only force Yixing to go to the ordinary class. He couldn't force Yixing to drop out because he didn't have that ability. Soon, all the students finished testing their heavenly fate. Apart from Yixing, the lowest heavenly fate was 9 6-star heavenly fate. Among them, there were naturally 5 unlucky people who were picked out and assigned to the ordinary class along with Yixing, because in order to prove their strength, they needed to fight Xiong Qixing. Those 5 unlucky people didn't dare to challenge a senior from the elite class. Their names were confirmed. After handing over his elite class identity card, Yixing received his ordinary class identity card. His number was ordinary class 10, room 175. Yixing, go find Grandmaster Mu. Grandmaster Mu will definitely uphold justice for you. Wei Qingxian was very indignant about this. Yixing patted her shoulder and said, "There's no need to trouble Grandmaster Mu with such a small matter. I can handle it myself. Just watch, it won't be long before the academy takes the initiative to invite me back to the elite class." Yixing and the 5 6-star heavenly fate were sent to the ordinary class's dormitory by the academy's deacon. On the way, Xiong Qixing caught up and called Yixing to the side. He whispered, "Trash, when you're in the ordinary class, I'll have plenty of chances to kill you." Yixing's eyes were like knives as he stared at Xiong Qixing with a look of contempt. "Bring it on. If you can't kill me 3 months later, I'll make you the biggest joke of the Purple Mountain Academy. At that time, let's see if you still have the face to live in this world." Xiong Qixing's eyes were cold as he said, "Do you think you can still live for 3 months? Hee, so what if you can live for 3 months? It won't be long before I step into the 8th stage of the martial Tao and become a martial scholar. At that time, we'll see who lives and who dies." With that, Xiong Qixing turned to leave. But suddenly he thought of something and turned back to continue speaking. "When I become an 8th stage martial scholar, I'll ask my master for a marriage between me and Wei Qingxian. Hee, you should know that my master is the vice principal Wang. If the vice principal wants a marriage, who dares to disobey? Huh? Only one place away from the overall ranking. Brothers, every vote has the chance to send the Archer God to the overall ranking. Please recommend it. In addition, Qidian is making a list of the best works of 2014. You can vote for the Archer God on the Archer God's homepage. The Archer God was released on the 11th of November, 2014. Naturally, it's a work of 2014. Hee, if you think the Archer God is good, please vote for it. Chapter 93. As Xiong Qixing left, Yixing's eyes flashed with a cold, murderous glint. Yixing really wanted to kill Xiong Qixing. If he had the chance, he would not let it go. The deacons did not care about the conflicts between the students. They would only intervene if a fight broke out in front of them. Naturally, they did not interfere with Yixing and Xiong Qixing. When Yixing returned, the deacons sent the 6 of them to the ordinary class dormitory and left. The ordinary class had already been allocated to different classes and dormitories, so the 6 people who came later were all allocated to ordinary class 10. 2 of them were in dormitory 174, and 4 were in dormitory 175. The other 3 who were allocated to dormitory 175, with Yi Crossing, were Wu Yuan, Massachusetts Bo, and Ye Dong. The 3 of them were young, about the same age as Yixing. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo's cultivation were at the mid-6th level, while Nye Dong was at the peak of the 6th level. In terms of destiny and cultivation, the 3 of them were on par with Gu Yijian and Xiong Qifeng. However, the 3 of them were 1 year younger than Gu Yijian and Xiong Qifeng, so their potential was greater. They were recruited into the genius class by the Marquis residence, who was in charge of recruiting students. Yixing had just entered the dormitory when he suddenly felt a gust of wind at the back of his head. Nye Dong, who was walking behind Yixing, suddenly attacked and threw a punch at the back of Yixing's head. Nye Dong had been at the peak of the 6th level for a longer time than Xiong Qifeng. His cultivation was more stable, and his inner force was more vigorous. The power of his punch was terrifying. Although Yi Xing had perfected the bronze tactic, he had not mastered the iron head technique. The back of his head would definitely not be able to withstand this punch. Niedong's punch came extremely quickly, and it was beyond Yi Xing's expectations. However, Yi Xing's reaction was extremely fast, and he immediately stepped into the Big Dipper. Stage of transformation. 7-star step. Just as Niedong's fist was about to land on the back of Yi Xing's head, Yi Xing's body transformed into a series of afterimages. In the blink of an eye, he dashed forward and appeared on the other side of the dormitory, dodging the punch. You dare to sneak attack me? Yi Xing's eyes were like swords as he stared at Niedong and shouted. If his 7-star steps hadn't reached perfection, he definitely wouldn't have been able to dodge that punch. If the opponent's sneak attack had been ordered by Xiong Qixing, the consequences would have been unimaginable. If a high-ranked student bullied a low-ranked student, it would affect the academy's reputation, and the academy would punish them severely. However, fights between freshmen were common, and there was nothing they could do about it. Geniuses of the younger generation were proud and arrogant. When geniuses from different places gathered together, it was very normal for fights to break out. If one were to accidentally injure the other party in a fight, although they would be punished by the academy, it would be relatively light. Flames of anger burned in Yi Xing's eyes. There was already a ball of fire in his heart, and Niedong's actions had completely ignited it. Moreover, he had no grudge against Niedong. Why would the latter attack him? It was very likely that he had been ordered by Xiong Qixing. This made Yi Xing even angrier. Niedong was surprised that Yi Xing had dodged the punch. His face was filled with surprise. Coupled with Yi Xing's shout, Niedong's eyes suddenly darted away. A flaw appeared in his heart. However, Niedong's dodging gaze only lasted for a moment. He calmed down and glared at Niedong. That's right. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been kicked out of the gifted class. Today, I'll beat you to death. Behind him, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo walked in and slammed the dormitory door shut. They stood on either side of Niedong and glared at Yi Xing fiercely. Ma Bo sneered. Wu Yuan said, "That's right. It's all because of you that we were kicked out of the gifted class. Today, we'll beat you to death." Seeing that the three of them seemed to have made an agreement, Yi Xing sneered in his heart. How could he not understand that the three of them must have been ordered by Xiong Qixing? Otherwise, even if the three of them were dissatisfied with him, they wouldn't have jumped out together to deal with him, a LV5 martial artist. Xiong Qixing ordered you to deal with me? Yi Xing's sharp gaze swept across the faces of the three of them. After all, the three of them were young and not too shrewd. When Yi Xing said the truth, their expressions changed slightly. Of course, they knew that this matter couldn't be exposed. They tried their best to hide the panic in their hearts, and tried their best to appear angry. What nonsense are you talking about? We don't even know Senior Xiong. Ma Bo said, pretending to be calm. Niedong was obviously the leader of the three. He waved his hand and said, "Don't talk nonsense with this trash. Beat him to death." Xiong Qixing had told the three of them that Yi Xing's strength was not weaker than any of them. That was why Niedong had launched a sneak attack on Yi Xing when he entered the dormitory. Since the sneak attack failed, the three of them naturally had to work together to deal with Yi Xing. Xiong Qixing had already told them how to deal with the aftermath after beating Yi Xing to death. They would say that Yi Xing had gone berserk in the dormitory because he was kicked out of the gifted class and wanted to kill people. In order to protect themselves, the three of them had mistakenly killed Yi Xing while resisting. As Niedong spoke, he took out a dagger from his sleeve. The dagger shone with a cold light. Its grade was no lower than the one Yi Xing had obtained from the masked assassin. It was obviously an upper-grade weapon. The three of them attacked at the same time. Niedong used the dagger technique, Wu Yuan used the fist technique, and Ma Bo used the palm technique. All of them were upper-grade martial arts techniques as they attacked Yi Xing. Even though Xiong Qixing had warned them that Yi Xing's strength was not weaker than any of them, the three of them did not think much of Yi Xing. They were the top geniuses in their respective cities, and were all level 6 martial artists. In their opinion, it would be easy for the three of them to kill a level 5 martial artist if they worked together. However, they were wrong. Very wrong. Yi Xing, who had used the 7-star steps of the transcendent realm, dodged Wu Yuan's fist like a phantom. At the same time, his fists moved and turned into countless fist shadows. It was the upper-grade martial arts technique, Thousand Shadow Fist. Bam 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 bam. Before Niedong's dagger and Ma Bao's fist landed on Yi Xing, the two of them were hit several times by Yi Xing and were forced to retreat. The two of them vomited blood. They were severely injured, especially Niedong, who was Yi Xing's main target. Niedong even vomited pieces of his internal organs. It was obvious that Yi Xing had hit him hard. This was not a competition in the arena. Yi Xing had no intention of hiding his strength. Once he used the Thousand Shadow Fist, no one under the level 7 could match him, unless the opponent was a martial Dao master. The three of them together were no match for Yi Xing. In one move, Niedong and Ma Bao were both severely injured. Wu Yuan was horrified and quickly retreated. However, the dormitory was only so big. Where could he retreat to? Yi Xing's 7-star steps was so fast that he appeared in front of Wu Yuan in the blink of an eye. The dense fist shadows continued to attack. It was the Thousand Shadow Fist again. Spare me! Wu Yuan screamed. Bang 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 bang. After a few deep sounds, Wu Yuan was sent flying by Yi Xing. He also vomited blood and was severely injured. In 2 moves, the three of them were completely defeated. They were all injured by Yi Xing. At this time, Ma Bao, who was slightly injured, had already gotten up from the ground and rushed to the door. If the door was open, he could rush out of the dormitory in the blink of an eye. Unfortunately, they had locked the door. Before Ma Bao could use his identity card to open the door, Yi Xing was already behind him. He grabbed his collar and slapped Ma Bao back. With Yi Xing blocking the door, the other three in the dormitory were like turtles in a jar. At this time, the three of them were no longer arrogant. Only fear and shock remained in their eyes. They never imagined that Yi Xing's strength had reached such a level. Yi Xing walked step by step toward the three of them. Niedong supported himself against the wall and stood up. He looked at Yi Xing with fear and said sternly, "What are you trying to do?" Yi Xing's eyes were cold. "Didn't Xiong Qixing tell you that I'm very dangerous?" As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xing's figure flashed and appeared in front of Niedong. Yi Xing hit Niedong's mute acupoint and then meridian cutting palm. Niedong's eyes widened. The intense pain in his body almost made his eyeballs pop out. He was sweating profusely. However, with his PU acupoint hit, Niedong could not scream no matter how much pain he was in. He could only see the shock, pain and fear in his eyes. Wu Yuan and Ma Bao were even more terrified than Niedong. They were about to scream for help when Yi Xing hit their mute acupoints with 2 fingers. Then with a cold flash, the dagger in Niedong's hand was snatched away by Yi Xing. He slit their throats. They immediately felt the sharp aura on their necks, which made their hair stand on end. "Do you want to live or die?" Yi Xing asked with a smile on his face. Yi Xing's smile did not make them feel at all friendly. They only felt danger. They nodded repeatedly. Obviously they wanted to live. Yi Xing first cut his shoulder with the dagger. Blood immediately flowed out and dyed his clothes red. He hit the wound's acupoint to stop the bleeding. Then he put Wu Yuan and Ma Bao's hands together and stuffed the dagger into their hands. He glanced at Niedong and said, "Kill him and you'll live. I'll give you 3 breaths. If you don't, he'll live and you'll die." Wu Yuan and Ma Bao shook their heads repeatedly. Their eyes were filled with fear. Yi Xing looked at the two with a smile and started counting. 1. When he said 2, the smile on Yi Xing's face disappeared. It was replaced by a solemn killing intent. His gaze also became sharp. Wu Yuan and Ma Bao's hands were trembling. They looked at each other and saw the struggle in each other's eyes. 3. Yi Xing's voice was cold and indifferent. Whoosh! At this moment, Wu Yuan and Ma Bao felt a terrifying killing intent from Yi Xing. They did not dare to hesitate. Both of them held their daggers and stabbed Niedong in the heart. Niedong died silently. His eyes were wide open. He clearly did not expect that he would die like this. Seeing Niedong's terrifying gaze, Wu Yuan and Ma Bao retreated at the same time. Their faces were filled with panic and fear. Yi Xing said from the side, "Ma Bao was kicked out of the gifted class, so he went berserk in the dormitory. He ambushed the three of us and tried to kill us. All three of us were injured and almost lost our lives. In order to protect ourselves, we had no choice but to resist Niedong and accidentally killed him. Am I right? Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were like drowning people who grabbed onto a piece of wood. Their eyes lit up and they nodded repeatedly. Chapter 94. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo killing Niedong with their own hands was equivalent to showing their loyalty to Yi Xing. The two of them didn't dare to reveal the truth. Otherwise, Yi Xing would naturally be punished. However, the two of them were the ones who killed Niedong, so their punishment would be even heavier than Yi Xing's. Their lives might even be in danger. The only way was to agree with Yi Xing's statement and say that Niedong was possessed by a demon and went berserk in the dormitory. He ambushed them, and they retaliated by mistake. Only then would they be punished lightly by the academy. Yi Xing unsealed their mute acupoints and said, "What did Xiong Qixing tell you? Tell me everything." Xiong Qixing wasn't just a student of the advanced genius class. He was also an 8-star heavenly mandate genius and the vice principal's disciple. Even now, the two of them were still afraid of Xiong Qixing and didn't dare to betray him. Yi Xing said, "Your lives are still in my hands. Do you think you can live if you don't make things clear?" Wu Yuan and Ma Bo glanced at each other. They both knew that Yi Xing wasn't someone easy to deal with. Now that their lives were in Yi Xing's hands, if they didn't make things clear and let him feel at ease, Yi Xing wouldn't let them off. "Xiong wants us to kill you in the dormitory and say that you were expelled from the gifted class and went berserk. You ambushed the three of us in the dormitory. The three of us fought back together and killed you by mistake. This way, we'll only receive a lighter punishment from the academy. After this, Senior Xiong promised to transfer us back to the gifted class as soon as possible." Senior Brother Yi, you know Senior Xiong's connections in the academy. We betrayed him, and he will definitely take revenge. We're willing to follow Senior Brother Ye's lead and ask for your protection. Since they had decided not to listen to Xiong Qixing, they naturally had to stand with Yi Xing. Moreover, the two of them had witnessed Yi Xing's terrifying strength and were truly shocked in their hearts. It could be said that they were sincerely convinced of Yi Xing's strength. They were also very optimistic about Yi Xing's future. Perhaps in the future, Yi Xing would really achieve great things, and they would be able to benefit from it. Yi Xing had little influence in the Purple Mountain Institute. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were in the same dormitory as him. If he could use them, it would be for the best. Yi Xing nodded and said, "Since you are on my side, I will naturally not let you be harmed by Xiong Qixing. However, if you want me to trust you, this is not enough. You have to write down what Xiong Qixing said to you, sign it and give it to me. If you listen to me, this proof of loyalty will never be seen by anyone. Otherwise, you know what will happen. Yes, we will listen to Senior Brother Yi." Although they were still somewhat unwilling in their hearts, since they had made a decision, they naturally could not be half-hearted. They could only write down a true proof of loyalty. The matter of Niedong going crazy in the dormitory and sneaking up on Yi Xing, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo, only to be mistakenly killed by the three of them, quickly spread throughout the Purple Mountain Institute. A fight between new students, no matter how fierce or fierce it was a small matter. However, once a life was lost, it was a big matter. The entire institute was alarmed. Although there were students who died every year in the Purple Mountain Institute, some of them died in fights. This was the first time someone had died on the first day of school. "Are you sure what you said is the truth? Niedong really went crazy in the dormitory? Sneak attacked you? If there is any falsehood, not only will you be punished for murder, but you will also be punished for bullying your superiors." The teacher in charge of Ordinary Class 10, Cui Haoren, looked sternly at Yi Xing, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo as he interrogated them. On the side, there were many other teachers who were eyeing Yi Xing, and the other two like tigers watching their prey. Moreover, there were many students nearby who were watching. Even students from the genius class had rushed over after hearing the news. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were nervous, but Yi Xing's expression was calm as he said, "Niedong was still brooding over being eliminated from the genius class and harbored a grudge against me. As soon as we entered the dormitory, He launched a sneak attack on me. Fortunately, this student dodged quickly and only received a dagger wound on my shoulder. Otherwise, this student would already be a dead man if he slit my throat. Yi Xing's words were false but true. Thus he spoke with great confidence and conviction. After that, it was thanks to Wu Yuan and Ma Bo's help that I managed to escape from Niedong's hands. However, Niedong was too strong. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo couldn't bear to fight to the death at first, and were also heavily injured by Niedong. In the end, we could only fight with our lives on the line. Niedong couldn't withstand the combined forces of the three of us, and was accidentally killed by us in a battle of life and death, resulting in a tragedy. Wu Yuan also nodded and said, this student was heavily injured by Niedong, and was almost stabbed in the heart by his dagger. Fortunately, senior brother Yi injured Niedong with his pulse-severing palm, and I managed to snatch the dagger back. At that time, I panicked and stabbed forward. At that time, I didn't intend to stab Niedong's heart, so this student stopped halfway because, Ma Bo continued, because when Niedong was injured by senior brother Ye's pulse-severing palm, his body paused for a moment, and he was hit by a few punches from me. His body hit the wall and bounced back. Unfortunately, he hit the dagger in Wu Yuan's hand, right at his heart. He died instantly. We wanted to save him, but it was already too late. Naturally, Yi Xing and the other two had already planned out their excuses. Their words were watertight, and he finally concluded. Niedong was our roommate, but he was accidentally killed by the three of us. Although he was the one who injured us first, the three of us still blame ourselves and are willing to accept the Academy's punishment. The wounds on Niedong's body and the dagger that pierced his heart were reasonable and without any flaws. Almost everyone believed the three of them. However, there was one person who didn't believe them. Xiong Qixing said loudly, "Liar, they're lying. Niedong was deliberately killed by them." Niedong and the other two were under Xiong Qixing's orders. When he heard that Niedong was dead, he naturally rushed here. Because Niedong and the other two were under his orders, his heart was as clear as a mirror. Yi Xing and the other two were lying. In the face of Xiong Qixing's yelling, Yi Xing sneered in his heart and said, "Teacher Cui, I'm telling the truth. However, I'm curious as to why Niedong would suddenly go berserk. Could it be that he was under someone's orders to kill the three of us, so he pretended to go berserk so that he could kill us on purpose?" Yi Xing's words immediately shut Xiong Qixing up. If the Academy found out that a senior genius class student had ordered a new student to kill someone on purpose, it would definitely be a big deal. Even if Xiong Qixing's master was the vice dean, it would be difficult for him to escape punishment. However, this alone wouldn't be enough to kill Xiong Qixing. Moreover, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were Yi Xing's people now. Yi Xing naturally wouldn't reveal this matter. It was enough to just warn Xiong Qixing. Niedong's actions were indeed strange, but Cui Haoran didn't want to look into it. Even if Yi Xing was telling the truth, the person who could order Niedong to do this was no ordinary person. It wouldn't be good for anyone if this matter was blown out of proportion. Cui Haoran said, "The Academy will investigate this matter. However, no matter what, you will not be able to escape punishment for accidentally killing a fellow student. Yi Xing, Wu Yuan, Ma Bo, you will be punished to clean the library for a month. Are you willing to comply?" Clean the library? Yi Xing was instantly overjoyed. The library of the Zishan Academy should contain martial arts manuals, right? Student obeys. Yi Xing said. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo naturally didn't dare to object. Cui Haoran said, "Well, the library has been cleaned today. From tomorrow onwards, it will be handed over to the three of you for a month. The Academy is clear about rewards and punishments. Students of the ordinary class can receive one upper grade accumulating star pill every month. The other students have already received it. Only the few of you from the gifted class haven't received it yet. Now each of you can receive one." While speaking, Cui Haoran had already taken out 5 upper grade accumulating star pills. Not only Yi Xing and the other two, but also the 2 students of dormitory 174, who were eliminated from the gifted class, had not received it yet. The 2 students walked out of the crowd and received a upper grade accumulating star pill from Cui Haoran along with Yi Xing and the other 2. Yixing was overjoyed. Originally, he was about to step into the 6th stage of the martial Tao. With this upper-grade accumulating star pill, he would be able to break through immediately. Yixing, my brother died because of you. I want to fight with you on the duel stage. As soon as Yixing received the upper-grade accumulating star pill, someone in the crowd called out his name and shouted. Yixing looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young man of about 18 years old coming out of the crowd. The freshmen of the Purple Mountain Academy were generally 15 or 16 years old. There were not many 17 years old. An 18-year-old youth was even rarer. Generally, the students of the advanced class who had been in the academy for 3 years were at this age. For example, Xiong Qixing was now in his early 18 years old. 3 years ago, he entered the Purple Mountain Academy at the age of 15. This person and Niedong did not look alike at all. Yixing did not realize that he and Niedong were brothers. He asked, "Who are you?" "Zhou Jianhong?" He is at the peak of the 6th stage of the martial Tao. He is almost the strongest among all the freshmen of the ordinary class. Zhou Jianhong is a member of the Zhou family of the county city. The Zhou family is a martial arts family with a 9th stage grandmaster. How can he be Niedong's brother? The crowd immediately exclaimed. Niedong came from an ordinary city, while Zhou Jianhong was a descendant of the Zhou family of the county city. It was difficult to connect the two. Although the Purple Mountain Academy had many spots in the county city, there were many martial arts families in the county city. Many of them were grandmaster or martial grandmaster level martial arts families. Their descendants were outstanding, so the competition was fierce. 3 years ago, Zhou Jianhong was only at the 5th stage of the martial Tao and did not get a spot. Now he was at the peak of the 6th stage of the martial Tao. He could be considered one of the strongest students in this cohort. However, he was already 18 years old, so he was too old to enter the gifted class. In the ordinary class, Zhou Jianhong was a tyrant. In just a little over a day, he had already taught 5 students from ordinary cities a lesson. He was famous for his prowess. Zhou Jianhong strode towards Yixing and said, "My mother is a member of the Nie family of Jinshui City. Niedong is my cousin. Although he was mistakenly killed by you, I will still seek justice for him." Yixing did not know whether Niedong was Zhou Jianhong's biological cousin or a distant cousin. In any case, he was not afraid of a fight. Moreover, he was alone in the academy, so he needed a name to intimidate the small fry. Zhou Jianhong's cultivation was very high, so he could use him to make a name for himself. Yixing nodded. "I will fight you." Chapter 95. In the academy, there were 2 types of arenas. One was the duel arena, and the other was the life and death arena. The duel arena determined victory and defeat, while the life and death arena determined life and death. Most of the students fought in the duel arena. Only very few people fought in the life and death arena. Only those with great hatred would fight in the life and death arena. Seeing Yixing agree, Zhou Jianhong laughed. He didn't look sad or angry because of Niedong's death. Zhou Jianhong said, "Yixing, since you want to fight in the duel arena, you should have some prizes. Otherwise, it will be a waste of effort." Yixing couldn't help but find it funny. Just now, he said that because of his cousin Niedong's death, he wanted to fight with Yixing on the duel arena. Now, it turned out to be a waste of effort. So what he said just now was just an excuse. His real intention was to make a bet with Yixing. Moreover, Yixing also understood why Zhou Jianhong chose to challenge him when Niedong's death was related to Wu Yuan and Ma Bo. It should be because Zhou Jianhong saw that he was only at the 5th layer of the martial path, the lowest among the 3. Yixing smiled and said, "What do you want to bet on?" Zhou Jianhong's eyes flashed and said, "Star accumulating pill. Whoever loses will give the other party a star accumulating pill." The academy ignored all gambling between students. The world of martial arts was full of danger. The academy was only responsible for teaching and some necessary discipline. It didn't restrict students from fighting in the arena. On the contrary, in order to improve the combat skills of the students, the academy also encouraged the students to duel in the ring and gamble on accumulating star pills. The academy had already distributed them to the students. And whether the students ate them or lost them to others, it didn't matter. Some students sighed. Zhou Jianhong is going to win another student's star accumulating pill. When Yi Xing heard these words, he immediately reacted. Zhou Jianhong should have more than one accumulating celestial pill on him and spoke up. It's not easy to enter the battle ring. How can one accumulating celestial pill be enough? I have 3 here. Do you dare to bet together? Yi Xing only had one accumulating celestial pill. However, if he used Wu Yuan and Ma Bo's accumulating celestial pills as his gambling capital, it wouldn't be a problem. He only had a cultivation at the 5th heavenly layer, so a high-rank accumulating star pill would be of great use to him. So, why wouldn't he be happy to earn 2 more accumulating star pills? How could Zhou Jianhong put Yi Xing, a level 5 martial artist, in his eyes? Hearing this, his eyes lit up. Originally, he wanted to challenge Wu Yuan and Ma Bo after defeating Yi Xing. Of course, the reason was that his cousin Yedong had died because of them, and he wanted to seek justice. Now that Yi Xing was willing to bet 3 pills with him, it was exactly what Zhou Jianhong wanted. It would save him the trouble of having to fight 3 times in a row. Not only would it be tiring, but it would also be troublesome. Zhou Jianhong cracked a smile, revealing 2 rows of snow-white teeth. All right, I'll bet you 3. After saying that, he took out 3 accumulating star pills to prove that he had them. The dueling platform was not far away, so the 2 quickly went up to the battle ring. Because of Niedong's death, the audience for this duel was not only large but also very comprehensive. A large number of students gathered here, as well as many deacons and teachers of the academy. On the battle ring, Zhou Jianhong slowly drew his sword and said with a smile, "Country bumpkin from the county city, remember this young master's name, Zhou Jianhong. Your 3 high-rank accumulating star pills belong to me, Zhou Jianhong haha." Zhou Jianhong's smile was very bright, but Yi Xing also had a smile on his face. Although he didn't smile as brightly as Zhou Jianhong, he was also in a very good mood. Yi Xing said, "I can't wait to get the 3 high-rank accumulating star pills in your hands, haha. You also remember this young master's name, Yi Xing. No more nonsense, let's get started." Among the students present, except for a few who came from Azure Sky City, no one knew about Yi Xing's deeds. Seeing him, a 5th-layer martial artist, say the same words as Zhou Jianhong, they all unconsciously pursed their lips. He really doesn't know life from death. Many students secretly said in their hearts. On the battle ring, Zhou Jianhong's smile disappeared. A country bumpkin from an ordinary city dared to be so arrogant in front of him, which really made him angry. The other party was eliminated from the gifted class, so his potential and strength were obviously very ordinary. Zhou Jianhong shouted, "Country bumpkin, I'll let you broaden your horizons. I'll defeat you with 1 sword." As soon as his voice fell, a sword light, like a beam of moonlight, broke through the air in an instant and stabbed in front of Yi Xing. It had to be said that Zhou Jianhong's swordsmanship was very high. Although this sword did not stab at Yi Xing's vital points and was not ruthless, it was fast and accurate. The reason why it was not ruthless was because it was not a battle to the death. Zhou Jianhong's goal was to injure Yi Xing, not to assassinate him. However, just as the sword light was about to stab Yi Xing's body, Yi Xing suddenly stepped on the Big Dipper, and his body was like a string of afterimages as he retreated backward. The tip of the sword seemed to have stabbed, but it also seemed like it did not. It stabbed at the edge of the afterimage. When Yi Xing's figure had completely retreated to the side, the crowd realized that the sword did not stab at all. Not only was Yi Xing not injured, but even his clothes were not torn. This made the faces of the students change. Yi Xing was only a 5th-layer martial artist, but he actually had such a brilliant movement technique. Zhou Jianhong's expression was very ugly. He said that he would defeat Yi Xing with 1 sword, but in the end his sword did not even touch the corner of Yi Xing's clothes. Swish, cold light flashed and linked together. Zhou Jianhong continued to attack Yi Xing with his sword, each strike faster than the last. Yi Xing stepped on the Big Dipper and dodged the attacks by a hair's breadth. He kept counting, 1 slash, 2 slashes, 3 slashes. Soon he counted to 10 strikes, but his opponent's strikes still missed. Zhou Jianhong did not pursue speed. and each strike was faster than the last. However, because of the anxiety in his heart, the energy in each strike was multiplied. When Yixing counted to 20 strikes, Zhou Jianhong was already panting. Suddenly, he realized that he had been tricked by Yixing. If he blindly attacked, he would die of exhaustion before Yixing could counterattack. Zhou Jianhong immediately withdrew his sword and retreated. He took a defensive stance and shouted, "You only know how to dodge with your movement technique. What kind of hero are you? Try attacking if you have the guts." Seeing that his opponent was no longer tricked, Yixing could only take the initiative to attack. In any case, his opponent had been attacking wildly before, and was not in a good state. Furious Steel Fist. Yixing wore a metal glove and punched out. The fist momentum was monstrous and the power was terrifying. The furious steel fist of the perfection of martial arts. Everyone raised their eyebrows at him. Even the older generation of 6th-level martial artists found it extremely difficult to cultivate the low-grade martial arts to the perfection of martial arts. Yixing was so young, but he had cultivated the furious steel fist to the perfection of martial arts? Yixing performed the furious steel fist and punched several times in a row. Zhou Jianhong was shocked by his momentum and was attacked by his fist force. He retreated again and again. Yixing did not want to fight for a long time. After 3 punches, he immediately changed his martial arts technique. His fist turned into 1,000 shadows. Zhou Jianhong only felt a blur in front of his eyes. The sword in his hand was hit to the side. Then there was a pain in his chest. He was hit by a punch and his whole person was suddenly blasted out of the ring. Yixing came to the edge of the ring and waved to Zhou Jianhong. "You let me win. Student Zhou Jianhong, 3 upper-grade accumulating star pills. Give it to me." Zhou Jianhong's face was red. He, a martial artist at the peak of 6th level, was defeated by a 5th-level martial artist from an ordinary city? Not to mention Zhou Jianhong, most of the students around were stunned and shocked. Obviously, they did not expect this result. Many teachers and school deacons were also surprised and nodded repeatedly. They expressed surprise and appreciation for Yixing's strength. Under the watchful eyes of the public, Zhou Jianhong naturally could not act shamelessly. He threw 3 upper-grade accumulating star pills to Yixing and immediately left. He did not want to make a fool of himself here. Yixing got 3 upper-grade accumulating star pills, and also returned to the dormitory with Wu Yuan and Ma Bo. He would clean the library tomorrow. He had nothing to do today, so he could go back and use the accumulating star pills to break through the 6th level of martial arts. Looking at Yixing's back, the students were shocked. Most of them had no grievances with Yixing, nor did they have any interest in him. They were all shocked by Yixing's powerful strength. In the hearts of the students in the ordinary class, Yixing was already one of the strongest among the freshmen. Many people even worshipped him. The strong naturally had admirers, and Yixing was one of the strongest among the freshmen. However, Xiong Qixing looked at Yixing's back with hidden malice in his eyes. Although he forced Yixing to the ordinary class, he was completely defeated in the first confrontation with Yixing. Not only was Yixing not killed by Niedong and the other 2, but Niedong died. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo even turned to Yixing's subordinates. Yixing and the other 2 received a very light punishment. They only had to clean the library for a month. Moreover, Yixing could be said to be doing very well in the common class. Not only did he earn a few more high-grade medicinal star pills, which were beneficial to the improvement of his cultivation, but he also became very famous. Among the students of the common class, he became a popular figure, admired by others, and had boundless glory. All of this made Xiong Qixing feel very uncomfortable. "Yixing, I'll let you be glorious this time. Next time, I'll definitely make you die without a burial place." Xiong Qixing thought fiercely. Dormitory 175. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo stood in front of Yixing. Neither of them took the star-accumulating pill that Yixing brought back. A star-accumulating pill won't improve our cultivation by much, but it's very beneficial to Senior Brother Yi. Senior Brother Yi, please take it. Yixing easily defeated Zhou Jianhong, which made the 2 feel that Yixing's future was extraordinary. Following Yixing would definitely benefit them in the future. Now they naturally wanted to show their loyalty. Yixing nodded and said, Alright, I'll accept your star accumulating pill. In the future, you will definitely benefit from it. You can go out first. I'm going to go into seclusion to break through to the 6th stage of the martial Tao. While he was in seclusion, Yixing was still worried. The two of them were also in the dormitory. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo left the dormitory. Yixing immediately took a star accumulating pill to refine and absorb it. The medicinal efficacy of the upper-grade star accumulating pill was many times stronger than that of the middle-grade star accumulating pill. Yixing immediately felt an incomparably surging star force when he swallowed it. Yixing immediately operated Qingyuan art to quickly absorb and refine it. As time passed, the 5th star ring in Yixing's dantian became brighter and brighter. The 6th star ring was faintly discernible. About an hour later, the 6th star ring was finally completely revealed. Yixing's cultivation had broken through and officially stepped into the 6th stage of the martial Tao. With the breakthrough in cultivation, the restriction on the internal strength in the body instantly disappeared. The internal strength was no longer restricted to the flesh and began to spread to the skin. There was a lot of room for improvement. Chapter 96. When Yixing and Zhou Jianhong fought, Wei Qingxian was not at the Zishan Academy, but at the Zishan Marquis residence. Her talent was shocking, and the academy was not sure if her destiny was 9 stars or higher. According to the usual practice, students with a 9-star destiny would have to go to the Zishan Marquis residence for another test. This was because only Zishan Marquis had a higher grade blood fate stone. Wei Qingxian went to the Zishan Marquis residence to see the legendary martial saint, Zishan Marquis. The Marquis residence was vast, and Wei Qingxian was in the residence. Other than her, there was only Grandmaster Mu Feng. After the deacon sent her to the Marquis residence, it was Grandmaster Mu Feng who received her and brought her here. Yixing did not want to rely on others, so he did not go to the Marquis residence to ask Mu Feng for help even after he was eliminated from the gifted class. But Wei Qingxian saw Mu Feng and naturally reported everything. Hearing this, Mu Feng smiled faintly. Other than the Marquis, no one can interfere with the matters of the academy. I am also powerless, but I feel that it is not a bad thing for Yixing to go to the ordinary class. His strength is shocking, and there may be people in the gifted class who can suppress him, but in the ordinary class he will definitely stand out. Haha, the achievements of the ordinary class's top students are not lower than those of the gifted class. Wei Qingxian still wanted to say something, but Mu Feng had already stood up. The Marquis is here. At this time, an 18 or 19-year-old young man pushed a wheelchair out from the back room of the residence. A middle-aged man sat in the wheelchair. The young man's aura was vigorous, as deep as the sea. Compared to the gifted class's teacher Emot Songhai, his aura was even stronger, causing Wei Qingxian to be secretly shocked. As for the middle-aged man, his hair was slightly gray, and he did not seem young. But looking at his face, he did not seem to be 40 years old. His appearance was dignified and very heroic, but there was a trace of sadness in his expression. There was no aura of an expert, and he seemed more like an ordinary person. However, Wei Qingxian was able to determine that the ordinary person on the wheelchair who looked valiant but did not have the aura of an expert was Zishan Ho. Although the young man pushing the wheelchair had an imposing aura and was extremely powerful, it was impossible for Zishan Ho to push the wheelchair for someone else. Marquis. Mu Feng bowed to the front. The middle-aged man in the wheelchair gently nodded. He was indeed Zishan Ho. Student Wei Qingxian greets Zishan Ho. Wei Qingxian immediately stood up and saluted. Although the fact that Zishan Ho was sitting in a wheelchair surprised her, she was still excited to see this martial saint whom she had heard of many times. Feng go take the test. Zishan Ho nodded towards Wei Qingxian, then instructed the young man behind him. Wang Feng, the absolute genius of the Wang family of the prefecture capital, Martial Saint Tianming, had not entered the Purple Mountain Institute. At a young age, he had been accepted by Purple Mountain Ho as a personal disciple, and later adopted as his son. Now Wang Feng was only 18 years old, about the same age as the students of the Purple Mountain Institute's Advanced Genius class, but his cultivation was already at the peak of the 9th rank. Compared to Xiong Qixing, it was like comparing the light of a firefly to the light of the moon. Even the most talented student in the advanced genius class was not worth mentioning in front of Wang Feng. There was no comparison at all. Wang Feng was only respectful towards Zishan Ho, but ignored Mu Feng and Wei Qingxian. His expression was indifferent, but his heart was arrogant. He walked to Wei Qingxuan's side, waved his hand, and a blood destiny stone appeared on the table next to Wei Qingxian. Wei Qingxian was surprised. Only now did she notice that Wang Feng was wearing a ring with a star engraved on it. It should be the legendary star ring that had its own space inside. Ignorant. Wang Feng secretly said to himself at the surprise in Wei Qingxuan's eyes. Wang Feng retracted his hand and placed it behind his back. He then said, "Let's begin. Let's see if you have the warrior sage destiny." Wei Qingxian looked at the blood destiny stone on the table, which seemed to be no different from the blood destiny stones that were tested in the past. She reached out and pressed her hand on the blood destiny stone. All of a sudden, a strong red light shone and the star slots lit up one after another. The intensity of the red light and the speed at which the star slots lit up made Zishan Ho's eyes move a little, and he became more alert. In just 3 blinks of an eye, all 9 star slots lit up, and the red light became more and more intense until it was blinding. Immediately afterwards, there were new changes. In the blink of an eye, the light in the first star slot turned from red to orange. At this moment, Wang Feng, who had been indifferent, finally had a change of expression. Only the warrior sage destiny could attract his interest. He took another look at Wei Qingxian. Mu Feng nodded secretly with a smile on his face. He had long guessed that Wei Qingxian had more than 9 stars, and now, it was confirmed. After the first star slot turned orange, the changes did not stop. Soon the light in the second and third star slots turned orange one after another. When the 4th star slot turned orange, Wang Feng's expression changed again, and he seemed to be moved. Ordinary destiny stars were divided into 9 stars, just like the warrior sage destiny stars. The first 3 stars were the beginner warrior sage destiny stars, the middle 3 stars were the intermediate warrior sage destiny stars, and the last 3 stars were the advanced warrior sage destiny stars. Wang Feng was extremely arrogant and regarded the geniuses of Zishan County as nothing. Even when Wei Qingxian had the warrior sage destiny stars, he was only a little interested because he had a 5-star destiny star, which belonged to the intermediate warrior sage destiny stars. Wei Qingxuan's destiny star had also reached the intermediate warrior sage destiny stars, and could compete with Wang Feng. Hence, he was naturally moved. However, Wei Qingxuan's destiny star was still not fully displayed, and the red light in the star slots continued to turn orange. In the blink of an eye, there was a change. When the red light in the 7th star slot turned orange, Wang Feng's face was already full of shock. The 7-star warrior sage destiny stars were already considered advanced. Not only were they 2 stars higher than Wang Feng's destiny stars, but they were also of a higher level. Seeing that Wei Qingxuan's destiny stars were so high, Mu Feng was both shocked and surprised. At this moment, even Zishan Ho was moved. Zishan Ho's destiny stars were the advanced warrior sage destiny stars. The red light on the blood life stone was unstoppable. Soon the 8th and 9th star slots turned orange too. At this point, the red light on the blood life stone had completely disappeared, and was replaced by an orange light. The orange light was so intense that it was not inferior to the previous red light at all. A look of surprise flashed in Zishan Ho's eyes as his heart trembled. This meant that Wei Qingxuan's destiny stars could be even higher. At this moment, Zishan Ho's eyes glowed with excitement. On the other hand, Mu Feng stared at the blood life stone with a slight pain in his eyes, but he was also extremely surprised. Although he had guessed that Wei Qingxuan's destiny stars were very high, he never expected it to be at such a level. A 9-star orange destiny star was the peak of the warrior sage destiny stars, which was only higher than Zishan Ho's. Wang Feng also never expected that Wei Qingxuan's destiny stars were not only higher than his, but also much higher than his. His heart was filled with excitement, and when he looked at Wei Qingxian again, he found her to be extremely pleasing to the eye. He was no longer as indifferent as before. Seeing that the blood life stone maintained its 9-star orange light and did not change, Wei Qingxian retracted her hand. The blood life stone immediately dimmed, but Wei Qingxuan's light did not dim. The other three all had a whole new level of respect for her. Zishanho said, "Very good, Wei Qingxian, your destiny stars are higher than I expected. From today onwards, you can directly enter the Advanced Genius class and enjoy special treatment. Furthermore, I will give you a good fortune in the future." Wei Qingxian gracefully bowed. "Many thanks, Zishanho." Wang Feng, who had already put away the blood life stone, was surprised. With Wei Qingxuan's talent, Zishanho actually did not accept her as a disciple? If Wei Qingxian was accepted as a disciple by Zishanho, then the two of them would be intimate and improve their relationship. However, Zishanho would not allow Wei Qingxian to remain as a student at Zishan Academy, because it would destroy the confidence of the other geniuses. Thinking that there would not be many opportunities to meet in the future, Wang Feng did not want to miss out on a girl with such high talent. He immediately asked Zishanho for instructions. "Godfather, I have a presumptuous request, and I hope Godfather can fulfill it." Zishanho valued Wang Feng very much. Otherwise he would not have accepted him as a personal disciple, and then adopted him as a son. Wang Feng rarely asked him for requests, but as long as he did, Zishanho would always agree. He nodded and said, "Speak." Wang Feng said, "I fell in love with junior sister Wei at first sight, and I cannot control my feelings. I wish to make her my life partner, and I hope Godfather can fulfill it." Wang Feng was indeed moved by Wei Qingxian. The main reason was that he had always been high and mighty, and none of the so-called geniuses of the younger generation in the county city could enter his eyes. So he was arrogant in his heart. Suddenly, there was a girl whose destiny stars were higher than his. Immediately the arrogance in his heart disappeared, and he was filled with admiration. Especially since this girl was a young girl, and he was only an 18-year-old youth. Naturally he was moved. However, Wang Feng's attitude caused Wei Qingxian to feel disgust. Her face was covered with a veil, and Wang Feng could not even see her face, so how could he fall in love with her at first sight? Moreover, Wei Qingxian was very clear about Wang Feng's indifference towards her before. Now he said that it was love at first sight, and that he could not control his feelings. Who was he trying to fool? He only saw that her destiny stars were very high, and her talent was monstrous. She would have great achievements in the future, so he changed his mind. Displeasure appeared on Zishanho's face, and he said, "Feng, if you want a girl to accompany you for life, how can you rely on the restrictions of your elders? You can only use your own sincerity to move others, and only then will they be willing to be with you. Do not mention this matter again." This was the first time he was rejected by Zishanho, and it was in front of Wei Qingxian. This caused Wang Feng's face to burn, and he said with slight disappointment, "I understand. Lord Ho, this student also has a request." At this time, Wei Qingxian also asked Zishanho for instructions. Zishanho said with interest, "Speak." Wei Qingxian was still thinking about Yi Xing's elimination from the gifted class, so she naturally repeated it. Yi Xing. Zishanho repeated this name. This was already the second time he had heard about Yi Xing. The first time was when Mu Feng had returned to the Marquis estate, and he had specially reported about Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian to Zishanho. Zishanho's point of view on this matter was similar to Mu Feng's. He said, low-level heavenly fate cultivators need to put in a lot of effort to become talented, and they also need a strong will. His hindrance is not necessarily a bad thing. I will pay attention to him, but I will not interfere with the matters of the academy. If he is gold, then the academy will not bury him. Chapter 97. Zishan Academy Library. This was the place where Zishan Academy stored their martial arts manuals. In the first month that Yi Xing, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo entered Zishan Academy, they didn't attend classes or cultivate. Instead, they were punished to clean the library. The Zishan Academy's library contained a vast amount of martial arts manuals. It was divided into 4 floors, from low-grade martial arts to supreme-grade martial arts. The library's fourth floor contained supreme-grade martial arts manuals. Most of them were incomplete, but there were also complete supreme-grade martial arts manuals. This floor was a forbidden area, and ordinary people were not allowed to enter. Yi Xing and the other two only had to clean the first 3 floors containing low-grade, mid-grade, and high-grade martial arts manuals. The martial arts manuals in the library could be read, but were not allowed to be copied. Every once in a while, the academy's deacons would patrol the library, and when they left, they would be inspected. If someone copied the martial arts manuals in the library, it was a very serious crime, and they would be crippled of their martial arts and expelled from the academy. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were naturally in charge of cleaning the library. Yi Xing was in charge of reading books in the library, and only when the deacons patrolled the library did he pretend to clean. To Yi Xing, the library was a huge treasure. Whether it was the Ye family's martial arts pavilion or the Xiong family's martial arts pavilion, they were like small study rooms in front of the library, not worth mentioning. The martial arts manuals in the Ye family's and Xiong family's martial arts pavilions, excluding the duplicates, did not even amount to 100. But in Zishan Academy's library, there were more than 2,000 martial arts manuals, which was 10 times more than the 2 martial arts pavilions combined. Yi Xing had the super brain, but what he lacked was martial arts knowledge. The more martial arts manuals he read, the higher his understanding of martial arts theory would be, and the easier it would be for him to cultivate martial arts to a higher level. A martial arts manual could be as short as a few hundred words, and as long as a few thousand words. Moreover, it involved the human body's meridians, blood, flesh, tendons, bones, skin, as well as the aura of the mountains and rivers, the changes of the sun, moon and stars, the energy of the earth, water, wind and fire, and so on. It was difficult to understand. Inferior grade martial arts and medial grade martial arts were still fine. The content involved was relatively simple. Normally, cultivators with some comprehension ability could learn by themselves through secret manuals. However, for superior grade martial arts and above, if there was no one to teach them, it would be like a heavenly book. For other martial artists, even if they were to seclude themselves in the library and read for a year, they wouldn't be able to remember many martial arts secret manuals. Furthermore, as time passed, their memories would gradually fade away. As for the martial arts secret manuals that could be understood, there were even fewer of them. But that was not the case for Yi Xing. Every time he flipped through a book, all of its contents would be scanned into his superbrain and stored there forever. Moreover, through the superbrain's powerful analysis function, it could verify and deduce different martial arts. This allowed Yi Xing to learn all kinds of martial arts secret manuals by himself, provided that his martial arts knowledge could keep up. For example, Yi Xing's martial arts knowledge was better than that of a martial Dao master. Therefore, it was very difficult for a martial Dao master to cultivate a superior grade martial arts to the mastery realm, but Yi Xing could. A person's ultimate martial arts attainment was related to their level of martial arts knowledge to a certain extent. It was hard to imagine what level Yi Xing's martial arts knowledge would reach if he read all the martial arts secret manuals in the library and comprehended them thoroughly. It was certain that he would have no problem cultivating a superior grade martial arts to the mastery realm. Yi Xing's reading speed was too fast. Even though he spent at least 2 hours a day pretending to clean, he could still read hundreds of martial arts secret manuals in a day. Yi Xing did not care whether he comprehended them or not. He just scanned them and copied them into his superbrain. He would think about the rest later. At night, Yi Xing cultivated Qingyuan art to improve his cultivation. He had already read the complete Qingyuan art manual in the library. He had already memorized the cultivation chants for the last 3 stages. With his talent in martial arts, it would not take long for him to make progress in Qingyuan art. In just 5 days, Yi Xing went through more than 2,000 martial arts secret manuals on the first 3 floors of the library. He did not read them carefully and did not understand their meanings, but the contents were all scanned into his superbrain. It was easy to scan them into his superbrain, but it was much more difficult to master them. Although it was only a matter of time for him to master them with the superbrain's powerful functions, it still required a lot of time. This was because the amount of knowledge was too large. Once Yi Xing mastered them, Even a martial arts grandmaster would not be able to compare with him in terms of martial arts knowledge. Mastering martial arts was not something that could be done in haste. Yixing was not in a hurry. Every day, he focused on cultivating martial arts. In the process of cultivation, all kinds of martial arts would naturally be slowly mastered. Time passed slowly, day after day. Yixing's martial arts knowledge level improved by leaps and bounds. His actual martial arts attainment also increased every day. One after another, Yixing successfully cultivated the inferior grade martial arts to the perfection realm. As Yixing's knowledge of martial arts increased, the super brain deduced and improved the Qingyuan art again. It improved the Qingyuan art to the level of a supreme grade cultivation method, allowing him to open up 15 meridians for cultivation. With the help of the 4 high-grade star accumulation pills, Yixing's cultivation base also increased rapidly. When Wei Qingxian learned that Yixing was punished, she came to visit Yixing several times after cleaning the library. She saw that Yixing did not look like he was punished at all. Instead, he was high-spirited and in a good mood. Wei Qingxian was completely relieved. On the 10th day, Yixing's Qingyuan art made progress and broke through to the 4th level. The first 3 levels of Qingyuan art opened up the meridians, and the last 3 levels strengthened the internal strength. The 4th level of internal strength made Yixing stronger than martial artists of the same level. He was only at the early stage of LV6, but in terms of internal strength, he was stronger than those in the middle stage of LV6. On the 15th day, Yixing's cultivation level finally improved and reached the middle stage of LV6. Even a genius would need several months to improve the cultivation level of LV6. Yixing's cultivation level improved by a small level in just half a month. It could be seen that the superior grade Qingyuan art was really effective. Of course, the 4 superior grade star accumulating pills also contributed a lot. Without the help of star accumulating pills, his cultivation would be slower. Yixing only used half a month to go from the early stage of LV6 to the middle stage of LV6. However, even if another month and a half passed, Yixing might not be able to cultivate from the middle stage of LV6 to the late stage of LV6. Yixing and the other 2 went to the library every day and stayed in dormitory 175 at night. They did not have much interaction with the other students. The other students also did not have time to pay attention to Yixing and the other 2. The month before entering the academy was the busiest month, because after the first month, the academy would conduct an assessment for all the new disciples. The top-ranked students would be given generous rewards to encourage the students to compete for the top spots. Therefore, in the first month, if the new students were not listening to the teacher's lessons, they would be cultivating by themselves. Almost no one paid attention to Yixing and the other 2. Not only were the new students busy, but the advanced class students were also very busy. Their assessment was in 3 months, and the level of rewards was much higher than the new students' assessment. Naturally, they were also busy cultivating. However, even so, Xiong Qixing did not cause trouble for Yixing during this period of time, which surprised him. Although he was surprised, Yixing was happy in his heart. It was best if there was no trouble. As time passed, when Yixing cultivated more than 100 low-grade martial skills to the perfection stage, he had already taken a small step towards mastering the various martial skills stored in his super brain. The level of his martial skills had increased by a large margin. Yixing had a feeling that his middle-grade martial skills seemed to have touched the edge of the perfection stage. Therefore, in addition to cultivating low-grade martial skills, Yixing also began to cultivate middle-grade martial skills every day. On the 25th day of his punishment, Yixing's martial skills reached another milestone. The middle-grade martial skill, Tiger Stallion Fist, was cultivated to the perfection stage. This was the first time that Yixing had cultivated a middle-grade martial skill to the perfection stage. Previously, his 7 stars steps and flying swan technique were only at the perfection stage. It was because he had fused a trace of wind force that he was able to stand at the perfection stage. When a middle-grade martial skill reached the perfection stage, it was even easier to cultivate the other middle-grade martial skills. In the next few days, almost every day, there would be 1 or 2 middle-grade martial skills that reached the perfection stage. Yi Xing's martial arts attainment had already reached the level of a martial arts grandmaster. Only a true martial arts grandmaster could easily cultivate a middle-grade martial arts technique to the martial arts grandmaster level. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, it was already the last day of his punishment. In the past month, Yi Xing's knowledge of martial arts and his attainments in martial arts had improved by leaps and bounds. He had undergone a tremendous change. As his martial arts attainments increased, Yi Xing's temperament changed as well. His every move was natural and natural. He looked like a martial Dao master of a generation. At night, in dormitory 175, Yi Xing was sitting cross-legged, cultivating Qingyuan technique. A month had passed, and tomorrow was the day of the assessment. According to the news brought by Wei Qingxian, the progress of the students in the gifted class had been very fast. Many 8-star Destiny Realm students were originally at the peak of the 6th level. However, with the help of the high-grade star accumulating pill and the guidance of the 9th level martial Dao master, at least 10 of them had broken through to the 7th level and became martial Dao masters. Not only that, under the guidance of the 9th level martial Dao master, the martial skills of the gifted class had also increased rapidly. It was inevitable for them to cultivate their high-grade martial skills to the entry stage. Those with outstanding talent had already cultivated their high-grade martial skills to the lesser success stage, or even beyond that. The assessment was the time for Yi Xing to prove himself. The academy had eliminated him to the ordinary class, so he used this fact to tell everyone who was the real genius. Therefore, regardless of whether it was for the reward of first place or to prove his strength, Yi Xing was determined to obtain first place in this new student assessment. He wanted to defeat all the freshmen in the gifted class. This was his response to the academy eliminating him to the ordinary class. Yi Xing's cultivation was still far from the late stage of the 6th level. He only had one night left, so the reason why he was diligently cultivating Qingyuan technique was naturally not to increase his cultivation. It was because his Qingyuan technique was only a step away from the 5th level. If he could break through, his internal energy would be strengthened. This was even better than raising his cultivation to the late stage of the 6th level. Hard work paid off. Yi Xing's Qingyuan technique had broken through to the 5th level. Chapter 98. On the day of the assessment, the Zishan Academy was extremely lively. This was the most important day for the freshmen, and all the freshmen would participate in it. The venue of the assessment was the Academy Square, which had been divided into 20 areas. The competition was divided into 20 groups. The group stage adopted a point system. The first and second place in each group could enter the second stage of the competition for the knockout round. There were 3 rounds in the knockout round to determine the top 20, top 10, and top 5. The top 5 would participate in the points competition, and the 1st to 5th would be ranked according to the winning percentage. As long as the 769 freshmen could rush out of the first stage of the points competition as the top 2 in the group, they would enter the top 40 and receive the Academy's rewards. Of course, the rewards would be different depending on the ranking. The top 40 would be rewarded with 1 upper-grade star accumulation pill. The top 20 would be rewarded with 2 upper-grade star accumulation pills, and the top 10 would be rewarded with 3 upper-grade star accumulation pills. The top 5 would be rewarded even more, divided into 5 ranks. Not only would they be rewarded with upper-grade star accumulation pills, but they would also be rewarded with upper-grade medicinal herbs that could replenish vitality. The 5th would be rewarded with 4 upper-grade star accumulation pills, and 1 upper-grade medicinal herb. The 4th would be rewarded with 6 upper-grade star accumulation pills, and 1 upper-grade medicinal herb. The 3rd would be rewarded with 8 upper-grade star accumulation pills, and 2 upper-grade medicinal herbs. The 2nd would be rewarded with 10 upper-grade star accumulation pills, and 2 upper-grade medicinal herbs. The 1st would be rewarded with 12 upper-grade star accumulation pills, and 3 upper-grade medicinal herbs. The Academy's rewards were not small, but it was not easy for the students to get the rewards. There were nearly 800 students, but only the top 40 would be rewarded, which was about 20 to 1. Yi Xing, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo were assigned to the 20th group. In order to prevent the strong from meeting each other in advance, the academy had assigned the strongest 20 students to different groups. Therefore, in each group, there was a seeded student. Among them, 15 were level 7 martial Dao masters, and 5 were peak level 6 martial artists. Although Yi Xing was in the limelight in the ordinary class, he hadn't attended classes for a month. He had been cleaning the library and had been keeping a low profile. The fame he had gained on the first day of school had naturally faded, and he wasn't among the 20 seeded students. The seed student in the 20th group was Feng Yuanming, a student of the gifted class. It was unknown whether Yi Xing's luck was good or bad. His first match in group 20 was against Feng Yuanming. Or rather, it should be said that Feng Yuanming's luck was bad. As a seeded student, he was afraid that his face would be swollen in the first battle. Go Yi Xing. When Yi Xing went on stage, he heard Wei Qingxuan's voice. There were too many people just now, so Yi Xing did not notice that Wei Qingxian had also come. Yi Xing winked at Wei Qingxian and smiled confidently. Then he looked around. Wei Qingxian had already been promoted to the advanced genius class. Since she was here, there should be other advanced class students as well. Yi Xing felt that Xiong Qixing should also be here. As Yi Xing expected, he quickly discovered Xiong Qixing's figure. The latter was like a poisonous snake, coldly staring at him from afar. Seeing Yi Xing's gaze, Xiong Qixing's eyes revealed a cruel smile. Intuition told Yi Xing that the other party did not have good intentions. Perhaps in this assessment he would meet an opponent specially ordered by Xiong Qixing. Yi Xing secretly paid attention. Umph! A cold snort came from the front. Feng Yuanming went on stage. Seeing that Yi Xing did not even look at him, his heart was filled with anger. Feng Yuanming's voice was filled with disdain. I didn't expect to meet a 2-star trash like you in the first round. If you know what's good for you, admit defeat. Otherwise, this daddy will slap you to death. Yi Xing had just gone to look for Xiong Qixing. He did not deliberately look down on the other party, but the other party's words had angered Yi Xing. Yi Xing smiled. One slap? Feng Yuanming's face carried an arrogant smile. One slap. Yi Xing nodded. Okay, one slap. Yi Xing's tone made Feng Yuanming feel a little strange. It sounded like Yi Xing wanted to slap him? Feng Yuanming still did not understand, but the deacon presiding over the battle had already said, You can begin. Don't be long-winded. As soon as the deacon's voice fell, Yi Xing's figure flashed and disappeared. An afterimage flashed past, and Yi Xing appeared in front of Feng Yuanming. Yi Xing's current 7-star steps had truly been cultivated to perfection. With the addition of a trace of wind force, it was unbelievably fast. Feng Yuanming only felt a blur in front of his eyes. He just understood that Yi Xing's tone just now was indeed about to slap him. Yi Xing had already arrived in front of him and raised his arm to slap him. Slap. Feng Yuanming had clearly pushed his speed to the limit and wanted to dodge backwards. However, with a crisp sound, he felt a sharp pain on his face, and his mind instantly went blank. Blood splattered everywhere, and broken teeth flew everywhere. As Feng Yuanming spat out blood and broken teeth, he was slapped out of the arena by Yi Xing. Yi Xing had easily defeated Zhou Jianhong, who was at the peak of 6th stage, when his cultivation was at the peak of 5th stage. Now that Yi Xing's cultivation was at the mid-stage of 6th stage, his martial arts attainments had increased by a large margin. Even though Feng Yuanming's strength was higher than Zhou Jianhong's, in the hands of Yi Xing, he was just a character who was sent flying with a slap. The surrounding martial artists who were watching were basically students who had been assigned to 20 groups for the competition. They all gasped and looked at Yi Xing with incomparable fear and reverence. The deacon presiding over the battle also looked at Yi Xing in surprise. A month ago, he had watched Yi Xing and Zhou Jianhong's duel. Now, it seemed that Yi Xing's strength had increased by a lot. In this month, Yi Xing had not attended classes and had been punished to clean the library. However, his strength had increased so quickly. It was really strange. The deacon of Group 20 restrained the surprise in his heart and said, Yi Xing wins. Next match, Yi Xing against Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng was a student of the ordinary class, and his cultivation was at the mid-stage of 6th stage. He immediately admitted defeat. Even the seated students of Group 20 had been sent flying with a slap by Yixing. Xiaofeng did not dare to make a move. Of course, he admitted defeat to avoid being sent flying with a slap by Yixing. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. After that, Yixing's opponents all chose to admit defeat in every battle, no matter if it was a student of the ordinary class or a student of the genius class. In the group stages, other than the first match against Feng Yuanming, Yixing also made a move. After that, his opponents all admitted defeat. He easily obtained first place in Group 20 and advanced to the second elimination round. As for the second place in Group 20, it was taken by Feng Yuanming. Since the academy had chosen him as a seated student of Group 20, his strength was indeed not weak. Even if there was a student in Group 20 who was also at the peak of 6th stage, he was still defeated by Feng Yuanming. It was a pity that Feng Yuanming met Yixing, this abnormal battle strength that defied the heavens. Moreover, he had a foul mouth and angered Yixing otherwise. He should have been very impressive in the group stages. However, because he had been slapped by Yixing in the first battle, even if Feng Yuanming won all his subsequent battles, he could not feel happy in his heart. Others looked at him as if they were looking at a joke, and did not have the slightest bit of respect. Feng Yuanming hated Yixing so much in his heart that his teeth itched, but he did not dare to show it on the surface. Yixing's slap was not light, and it caused his heart to tremble even now, because there were 20 groups competing at the same time. The group stages did not last for too long. The first and second place of each group had all come out. Those 15 7th stage masters had all advanced as the first place of their group. The other 4 first places of the group were all at the peak of 6th stage. Only Yixing's cultivation was at the middle of 6th stage. Not only was his cultivation the lowest in the group first place, even the second place of the other 20 groups had the lowest cultivation at the peak of 6th stage, much higher than him. After the first stage of the competition ended, there was a break for a while. The previous division of the square into 20 areas was no longer suitable for the elimination rounds. During the break, the academy redivided the square into 5 areas. There would be 5 elimination rounds at the same time. There would be 20 battles for the advancement of 40 to 20, and there would be a total of 4 rounds. There would be 10 battles for the advancement of 20 to 10, and there would be a total of 2 rounds. During the break, Yixing was naturally together with Wei Qingxian. Yixing, your strength has increased by a lot. The gap between us seems to have widened. Wei Qingxian exclaimed. Your destiny is so high. If I don't work harder, I'll be left behind by you very soon. Yixing smiled faintly. Yixing's super brain had already scanned Wei Qingxuan's cultivation. She was only a hair's breadth away from the late stage of 6th stage. It was likely that she would break through in the next few days. Wei Qingxian was specially groomed by the Purple Mountain Academy and enjoyed special treatment. Coupled with her high fate, her cultivation would definitely increase like a rocket. Even though Yixing felt that his cultivation was increasing very quickly, compared to Wei Qingxian, it was still slightly inferior. Wei Qingxian smiled embarrassedly. Her fate had surpassed 9 stars. She did not want to hide it from Yixing, but Zishanho had warned her not to reveal her fate to anyone, so she endured it and did not say anything. Therefore, although Wei Qingxian was amazed by Yixing's progress, she was also very happy. She and Yixing had an unspoken agreement to become stronger together. If Yixing fell behind, she would become a peak martial saint in the future. If the gap between them was too big, it would be difficult for them to get along as well as they were now. The break time quickly passed and the square was divided into 5 sections by the academy. When Yixing went up to draw the lots, Wei Qingxian waved her delicate fist and said, Yixing, I believe in you. You will definitely get first place. Yixing nodded slightly with a confident smile. A trash of the 6th stage wants to get first place TSK. At this time, a student of the 7th stage of the martial path heard it and said with disdain, and a trash of a 2-star fate. If he meets me, Jiang Wenlong, I will beat the shit out of him. Yixing narrowed his eyes and a cold light flashed in them. He had already noticed Jiang Wenlong. He was with Xiong Qixing just now. Moreover, other than Jiang Wenlong, there were 4 other students of the 7th stage of the genius class. Xiong Qixing had already looked for them. Chapter 99. Among the 15 freshmen in the 7th stage of the martial Tao, at least 5 of them were in the same group as Xiong Qixing, or had an agreement with him. They were all targets that Yi Xing was wary of. Hanging out with Xiong Qixing was definitely not a good thing for him. At present, Jiang Wenlong's attitude proved this point. Yi Xing's cold eyes swept over Jiang Wenlong and said, "Jiang Wenlong, right? If we meet later, whoever admits defeat will be a bastard. Let's see who will beat the shit out of who." Jiang Wenlong's eyes flashed a sharp aura and he laughed. "Well, whoever admits defeat will be a bastard. He. Trash, you wait. I will beat you until you piss your pants, hee hee." The nearby students saw Yi Xing and Jiang Wenlong fighting. Some looked amazed, some sneered. Although they all thought that Yi Xing's strength was very strong, they didn't think that Yi Xing could compete with a martial Tao master. The gap between the 7th stage of the martial Tao and the 6th stage of the martial Tao was not just a little bit, but a gap that was difficult to cross. In the first round of the knockout, Yi Xing and Jiang Wenlong couldn't meet, because the rule of drawing lots was that the first in the group would be the second in the group. Yi Xing and Jiang Wenlong were the first in the group to advance, so they couldn't meet in this round. The names of the second in the group were placed in a wooden box, and the first in the group to advance were drawn by the first in the group. When Yi Xing caught a paper ball and opened it, a strange smile appeared on his face. The name on the paper was Feng Yuanming. It seemed that he and Feng Yuanming had some ill-fated relationship. Not only were they both in the 20th group, but he also had a 1 in 20 chance of being picked by Yi Xing. When Feng Yuanming found out that his first opponent was Yi Xing, his face immediately turned bitter. His right cheek was still a little swollen, and now he felt a burning pain. He didn't dare to fight with Yi Xing again. At this time, Feng Yuanming was in awe of Yi Xing. Before Yi Xing could open his mouth, he quickly admitted defeat. Yi Xing also advanced to the top 20 without making a move. As for the first place in the other groups, none of the 15 7th-tier grandmasters could shake them. As for the other 4 peak 6th-tier grandmasters, one of them was defeated by a 6th-tier grandmaster who had advanced to the second place in the other groups and was eliminated. The top 20 were determined. 15 7th-tier grandmasters, 3 peak 6th-tier grandmasters, 1 peak 6th-tier grandmasters, and 1 intermediate 6th-tier grandmasters. The reward for the 21st to the 40th place was the same, an upper-grade accumulating star pill, so the eliminated students didn't have to compete anymore and directly started the next round. All the eliminated students were excited. They were eliminated and naturally became spectators. The second round of the knockout was the competition between the top 20 and the top 10. In this round, there would be a showdown between martial Tao masters, and some martial Tao masters would be eliminated. The intensity of the battle was much more wonderful and intense than before. Naturally, it was exciting. Yi Xing, do you dare to be in the same group with me in this round? The academy hadn't arranged the list yet, and the drawing of lots hadn't started yet. Jiang Wenlong shouted and directly called out Yi Xing. Yi Xing just planned to deal with Jiang Wenlong when he met him. He didn't expect that the other party was even more anxious than him, and pointed out that he wanted to fight with him in this round. However, Yi Xing didn't have the slightest fear and said, "Why not?" Jiang Wenlong smiled and said to the deacon who presided over the competition, "Deacon, since we are both willing, let's arrange a showdown for this round." Since both parties were willing, the deacon naturally wouldn't interfere and nodded. "Okay." Jiang Wenlong's face revealed a ferocious smile as he stared at Yi Xing fiercely, like a hound staring at its prey. "Jiang Wenlong, don't be careless and lose the face of us martial Tao masters. You were defeated by a 2-star Heaven's Mandate trash." Beside Jiang Wenlong, a 16-year-old freshman coldly snorted. He was also a martial Tao master. Moreover, he was also the one who was looked for by Xiong Qixing. "How can I be defeated by this trash? At most 3 moves and I'll beat him until he pisses his pants. Bian Chusheng, this trash doesn't need you to teach him a lesson." Jiang Wenlong's face was filled with arrogance as he disdainfully glanced at Yi Xing and said, "That's for the best, but hee hee." Bian Chusheng sneered and said, "Jiang Wenlong, if you lose, I'll take revenge for you. P. Impossible. The other 18 people's names were quickly determined. The 9 students who broke through to the 7th stage of the martial Dao first would draw lots for the other 9. There would be 5 pairs of 7 Dao masters. This was the highlight of this round. The second round of the elimination round had a total of 10 battles. There were only 5 arenas, so it would be divided into 2 rounds. Yi Xing and Jiang Wenlong's battle would take place in the easternmost arena of the first round. Among the 5 battles, 3 of them were between martial Dao masters, which attracted most of the audience's attention. Not many people were watching the battle between Yi Xing and Jiang Wenlong. Come on, see how I'll beat you until you piss your pants. Hee hee. Jiang Wenlong sneered. His weapon was a long spear. The tip of the spear was shining with a cold light. It was a high-grade weapon. As the saying goes, a month with a stick and a year with a saber, a lifetime with a spear. Spear techniques were the most difficult to master, but once mastered, the power was amazing. Let's begin. The deacon on the side said. Die. When the deacon said begin, Jiang Wenlong's temperament changed instantly. His eyes widened, and his momentum was amazing. He shouted loudly. Whoosh! The long spear pierced forward. The spear was dazzling, and it was like a straight white chain bursting out. Whoosh! There was no wind and waves in the air. The air within a radius of 10 feet was stirred up by Jiang Wenlong's piercing, which almost caused the wind. It seemed that Jiang Wenlong had worked hard on his spear. His spear technique was very good. Ordinary level 6 martial artists, even if their cultivation was at the peak of level 6, couldn't block his spear. However, this spear was not a big threat to Yi Xing. Yi Xing had already comprehended a trace of wind. Now that Jiang Wenlong's piercing caused the wind to move, Yi Xing felt the wind. It was as if there were eyes in all directions. How could he be pierced by the latter? Yi Xing stepped on the Big Dipper, and his body moved with the wind. In an instant he floated up. Whether it was Jiang Wenlong or the surrounding audience, they all felt dazzled. When they looked again, Yi Xing was already in midair, and stepped on the spearhead. How fast was Jiang Wenlong's spear? Yi Xing was actually able to accurately step on the spearhead at this critical moment. This caused everyone's expressions to change in shock. If he had stepped a little faster and stepped on the front of the spearhead, then this spear would have pierced a big hole in his foot. Unfortunately, in Yi Xing's dictionary, there were no ifs. Since he dared to step on it, it was naturally foolproof. Yi Xing's body looked light, but when he stepped on the spearhead, it was extremely heavy. Immediately, the spearhead sank down and fell to the ground. Too slow. Yi Xing's voice sounded like a slap to Jiang Wenlong's face. While speaking, Yi Xing moved his feet and walked quickly along the spear shaft toward Jiang Wenlong. Jiang Wenlong's expression was shocked, and his body quickly retreated. He instantly withdrew his spear and swept it across his waist. Total annihilation. The spear swept across like a crescent moon, and in an instant, it shot forward with a terrifying momentum. The air seemed to be cut in half by the spear. Yi Xing was in the air, and fell to the ground like 1,000 jin. His body leaned back, and the spear cut above his stomach, but it missed again. Too slow. Yi Xing still gave the same evaluation. You're courting death. Feeling the sarcasm in Yi Xing's words, Jiang Wenlong was furious and angrily said, Strength breaking 1,000 mountains. Jiang Wenlong's body jumped up, and with both hands holding the spear, it was as if he was holding a dragon, and fiercely smashed it to the ground. The spearhead drew a sharp spearlight, and shot out, cutting everything in front of it in half, and slashing toward Yi Xing. This spear had an indomitable momentum, and when the spearhead slashed down, it was enough to cut through everything. Unfortunately, the spear's attack was strong but its transformation was slow. When the spear fell to the ground, Yi Xing had already disappeared. The spearhead split a large piece of the solid floor, but it did not touch the corner of Yi Xing's clothes. Too slow. Yi Xing's voice rang out, and the content was the same. However, when Jiang Wenlong heard it this time, he did not feel the slightest bit of anger. He only felt his hair stand on end, and his heart was greatly shocked. Yi Xing's voice came from behind him, so close that it sounded like it was ringing in his ear. Jiang Wenlong's move, strength breaking thousand mountains, was too fierce, and at this moment, he was unable to withdraw his spear and counterattack. Without waiting for Jiang Wenlong to dodge, he felt a pain in the back of his head, and Yi Xing's fist had already landed. With a heavy blow to the head, Jiang Wenlong was suddenly stunned. He only felt a buzzing sound in his head, and his body fell forward. After all, Jiang Wenlong was a LV7 martial Dao master, and his internal strength protected his body, so he was not really stunned by Yi Xing's attack. He rushed forward a few steps, felt the wind behind his head, and immediately turned his body. The spear was like a dragon, sweeping in an instant. Still too slow. Yi Xing's voice rang out again, and Jiang Wenlong's hair stood on end. The voice was right in front of him. However, Jiang Wenlong did not see Yi Xing's body, but only saw a sky full of fist shadows. High-grade martial arts technique, Thousand Shadow Fist. Bang bang bang, not only was Jiang Wenlong punched in the chest, the arm holding the spear was also hit hard, and the long spear in his hand was knocked out of his hand. Even the weapon was knocked out of his hand. Jiang Wenlong was really frightened at this moment, and he used his body movement to the limit to retreat. However, Yi Xing's speed was faster than him. As soon as the Thousand Shadow Fist came out, there were many fist shadows, and Jiang Wenlong's nose and face were swollen. Even if Jiang Wenlong was a LV7 martial Dao master, he could not withstand several blows and was directly knocked to the ground by Yi Xing. His back hit the ground heavily, and the shock made Jiang Wenlong's qi and blood surged. There was a sharp pain in his chest, and blood gushed out of his mouth. Stage of martial arts, wind chasing kick. Yi Xing's leg was like the wind, and as fast as lightning. His body turned over, and his leg smashed down like an iron spear. Bang! Jiang Wenlong was hit by Yi Xing's leg, and his stomach was hit hard. Not only did he suffer serious internal injuries, but he was also beaten to incontinence in an instant, and feces and urine came out. Exclamations were heard everywhere, and the students who watched the battle were shocked. They never expected that Jiang Wenlong, a martial Dao master, would be beaten so miserably by Yi Xing. Chapter 100. Jiang Wenlong suffered such a heavy blow that he almost fainted from the pain. If it was a battle of life and death, Yi Xing could easily take Jiang Wenlong's life. Since it was an assessment, Yi Xing naturally wouldn't be so ruthless. After severely injuring Jiang Wenlong, he retreated. Did I win? Yi Xing asked the shocked administrator. A 6th-stage martial artist had severely injured a 7th-stage grandmaster. The administrator was shocked and lost in thought. He only reacted when Yi Xing asked. In an assessment, one side didn't necessarily lose if they were injured. This was because opponents of similar strength could be injured. The one who was injured first might not necessarily lose in the end. Therefore, only by admitting defeat would one be considered to have lost. If one didn't admit defeat, the battle could continue. The current Jiang Wenlong was obviously unable to admit defeat on his own. However, since he was already injured to this extent, Yi Xing could not continue to attack him. Naturally, he had to let the steward make the decision. When the administrator came back to his senses, he looked at Yi Xing in shock. He nodded and said, "I won. Of course I won." Yi Xing smiled faintly and left the arena. Jiang Wenlong was naturally carried away. At this moment, the students in the other arenas were in an uproar. When they heard the exclamations, they looked over and realized that Jiang Wenlong, who was in the 7th stage of the martial path, had actually been defeated by Yi Xing and was severely injured. The gap between a 6th-stage martial artist and a 7th-stage grandmaster was huge. This result was beyond everyone's expectations. When they heard the news, they were all shocked. All the students regretted not watching the battle between Yi Xing and Jiang Wenlong. They had missed the opportunity to watch a 6th-stage martial artist defeat a 7th-stage grandmaster. Such an opportunity was hard to come by in a lifetime. Luckily, they were still in the middle of the competition. Yi Xing's next opponent would definitely be a 7th-level grandmaster. All the students had already decided in their hearts that they absolutely couldn't miss out on Yi Xing's next battle. The students who had already been eliminated as spectators were naturally here to watch the show. As for the students who hadn't been eliminated, especially those who were at the 7th level of the adept level. Their expressions were solemn. They treated Yi Xing as a powerful opponent. Not long after, the other 4 battles also ended one after another. The victors were all 7th level grandmasters. In particular, the winners in the middle, south and north arenas were Jing Feitian, Yu Xixue, and Li Yanzhao. All 3 of them had defeated martial Dao masters of the same realm, and were equally famous, becoming the hot topic of discussion. As the only girl among the 3, Yu Xixue won the admiration of countless male students and became the most popular student. As for the winner in the West Arena, Ling Fengjue, his opponent was only at the peak of the 6th stage. This was a natural result, and was ignored by most of the students. The last 5 matches of the 2nd round of the elimination round soon began. In this round there were 2 pairs of martial Dao masters, which attracted the attention of the audience. After a fierce battle, the victors of the 2 martial Dao masters were finally decided. One was Bian Chusheng, and the other was Zhao Xingyang. As for the other 3 battles, the opponents of the martial Dao masters were all 6th level martial artists. These 6th level martial artists were quite outstanding in the same realm, but they were far inferior in front of the 7th level masters. Naturally, the 3 martial Dao masters won. At the end of the 2nd round, the top 10 freshmen assessment were decided. They were Jing Feitian, Yu Xixue, Li Yanzhao, Bian Chusheng, Zhao Xingyang, Ling Fengjue, Nan Xinro, Yu Hua, Yang Ping, and Yi Xing. Among the top 10, there were 9 martial Dao masters, and only Yi Xing was a 6th level martial artist. However, no one had any objection to this. Yi Xing entered the top 10 because of his strength. At least half of the martial Dao masters in the top 10 were very afraid of Yi Xing. However, Yi Xing was not the most popular among the top 10. Jing Feitian, Yu Xixue, Li Yanzhao, Bian Chusheng, and Zhao Xingyang, the 5 7th level masters who had defeated masters of the same realm, were the real heroes, and the most popular candidates for the top 5. After all, Yi Xing's cultivation was his weakness in front of the 7th level masters. Naturally, the strength of the 5 7th level masters, including Jing Feitian, was more convincing, and Yi Xing was just more surprising. The assessment entered the 3rd round of the elimination round, and 5 out of 10 would advance. In this round, the 5 people who had defeated masters of the same realm would draw lots. Their targets were Ling Fengjue, Nan Xinro, Yu Hua, Yang Ping, and Yi Xing. Li Yanzhao, Bian Chusheng, Ling Fengjue, and Yu Hua had all come into contact with Xiong Qixing, and their gazes towards Yi Xing were very unfriendly. However, in this round, they did not directly challenge Yi Xing like Jiang Wenlong did. Yi Xing was only a 6th level martial Dao master. A 7th level master challenging a 6th level martial artist was a disgrace. It would be good if he won, but if he lost, it would be really embarrassing. Jiang Wenlong had now become a joke. With this lesson in mind, the other 4 naturally would not take the initiative to challenge Yi Xing. In any case, as long as Yi Xing advanced, there would always be a chance to deal with Yi Xing. After the drawing of lots, the names of the 3rd round were confirmed. Jing Feitian against Ling Fengjue, Yu Xixue against Nan Xinro, Li Yanzhao against Yu Hua, Bian Chusheng against Yang Ping, and Zhao Xingyang against Yi Xing. When the battle venues were confirmed, most of the students ran to the east and west. Very few went to the other 3 venues. The eastern venue was Yu Xixue against Nan Xinro. Among the top 10, only the 2 of them were women. Moreover, they were both beautiful and had high popularity. Zhao Xingyang and Yi Xing were on the west side of the arena. There was no doubt that compared to the duel between martial Dao masters, Yi Xing, a LV6 martial artist, was the most interesting duel among the students. If it weren't for the 2 beauties, Yu Xixue and Nan Xinro, who had attracted a lot of spectators, more than 80% of the students would have run to the western venue. Western venue. Yi Xing and Zhao Xingyang faced off. "I'm not that trash, Jiang Wenlong." Zhao Xingyang glared at Yi Xing. As an 8-star Destiny Realm genius, Zhao Xingyang was naturally one of the people who mocked Yi Xing. At that time, he never expected that a 2-star Destiny Realm that he regarded as trash would become his opponent in the assessment. Although Yi Xing defeated Jiang Wenlong, Zhao Xingyang was still confident. In the previous round, he also defeated a 7th-level martial Dao master. He didn't think that he was weaker than Yixing naturally. Zhao Xingyang didn't dare to look down on Yixing like before. He already regarded Yixing as an opponent on the same level. Yixing's figure was like a mountain. He faintly smiled. There's no difference between the two of you. Zhao Xingyang was furious. Humph, don't think that you can look down on other martial Dao masters just because you defeated Jiang Wenlong. I will let you understand how terrifying a martial Dao master is. Yixing's smile didn't change. I'll be waiting. Around the venue, the students were also discussing. Student A. Who do you think will win? Student B. I think it should be Zhao Xingyang. He also defeated a 7th-level martial Dao master in the previous round. Student C. And Yixing is already very heaven-defying to be able to rush into the top 10. This is also because of his good luck. Jiang Wenlong seems to be the last to break through to the 7th level. If he met another 7th-level martial Dao master in the previous round, he might not have won. Student D. I think we should ask how long Yixing can last against Zhao Xingyang. Zhao Xingyang was one of the popular candidates for the top 5. The students were very confident in him. On the contrary, they had very little confidence in Yixing. Most of them thought that Yixing would lose this battle. It was just a matter of how long he could last against Zhao Xingyang. The surrounding discussions made Zhao Xingyang extremely proud, and he smiled mischievously. On the other hand, Yixing's figure was still tall and straight, and he was like a mountain that stood firmly in the abyss. The words of the others didn't affect him in the slightest. He wouldn't refute these words. He would only use facts to prove it. Let's start. The deacon on the side ordered. Zhao Xingyang chuckled, and the surrounding temperature suddenly rose. His 2 palms turned crimson red, as if they were about to burn. Red flame palm. It was a high-grade martial art technique with fire attribute internal force. Its power was amazing. Aren't you fast? Let's see which is faster, your speed or my palm print. Zhao Xingyang sneered. He channeled his internal force and the red color of his palms became more obvious. He slammed his palm toward Yixing. The wind from the palm whistled, and the heat wave was like a tide. A red palm print was instantly launched. The palm print wasn't as sharp as the sword qi, but its power was definitely stronger. It was very powerful. Yixing stepped on the Big Dipper, and his body was like a phantom. He dodged the palm print attack in an instant. However, before Yixing could counterattack, Zhao Xingyang shouted again, 5 chain seals. Bang 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 bang. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Xingyang launched 5 consecutive palm prints. 5 palm prints were launched at the same time. It was difficult to tell which one was first as they attacked Yixing. The 5 palm prints blocked all of Yixing's escape routes. Yixing's eyes narrowed. His opponent's palm technique restrained his movement technique. However, Yixing's expression was as usual. The corner of his mouth curled up. He relied on more than just his movement technique. Boom! Yixing punched out. In an instant, the roar of a tiger could be heard. An explosive aura instantly surged in all directions like a tide. Unleashing the tiger roar, Yixing advanced courageously like a ferocious tiger descending the mountain, rushing towards Zhao Xingyang. Bang! The red flame palm print was smashed by Yixing's punch. In the blink of an eye, he rushed to Zhao Xingyang. Seeing that Yixing wanted to fight him head-on, Zhao Xingyang was not surprised. His opponent was only at the 6th level of cultivation. In terms of internal force, he was far superior. In a head-on fight, he could heavily injure his opponent in less than 3 moves. Red flame palm. Roaring tiger fist. In an instant, the 2 fists and palms collided. With a loud boom, there was an earth-shattering explosion. The surrounding spectators all widened their eyes in shock. They stared intently at the 2 people in the battle, afraid that they would miss a single moment. After the explosion, Zhao Xingyang's body shook. He immediately took a step back and his expression changed. Take another punch. Yixing was invincible. His black hair flew in the wind. He was as powerful as a tiger. He took a step forward and punched out again. The roar of a tiger could be heard in the forest. This is impossible. At this moment, many students exclaimed in shock. In the head-on collision between Yi Xing and Zhao Xingyang, it was Zhao Xingyang who was repelled. This was unbelievable. Chapter 101. The fist and palm collided for the second time. Zhao Xingyang's expression changed again. He took 3 steps back, and a trickle of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Compared to the shock in Zhao Xingyang's eyes, Yi Xing's eyes were full of confidence and high spirits. Compared to defeating his opponent with mysterious movements, he preferred the most direct way to crush his opponent. In a head-on collision, every punch would land on flesh and blood would be spilled. This was the only way to stimulate Yi Xing's boiling blood. This was the only way to release the energy in his body. This was the only way to create the most comfortable feeling and elevate his spirit. Yi Xing's roaring tiger fist had already reached the transcendent state and had reached the acme of perfection. What did it mean to reach perfection? It was only when one used the spirit that it could be considered to have reached perfection. There were different levels in the level of perfection. Yi Xing's roaring tiger fist could only be considered to have just reached the level of perfection. It was at the edge of the level of perfection. True perfection was even more mysterious and unfathomable. It was the highest level of the transformative stage. At this moment, Yi Xing's blood was boiling and his spirit was elevated. In a flash, his roaring tiger fist was even more profound and unpredictable. It had reached the most mysterious level. His aura was almost connected to the heaven and earth. Yi Xing only felt that he had touched a forbidden level. His body was one with the heaven and earth. The power in his body was endless. Take another punch. Yi Xing shouted. His voice was like a tiger's roar. It was so powerful that it shook the surroundings. The students' hearts sank when they heard it. It was as if they were being suppressed by an invisible force. Zhao Xingyang's eyes were suddenly filled with fear. At this moment, Yi Xing's figure was no longer in his eyes. Instead, he saw an incomparably huge tiger, roaring at him and pouncing on him. What was spirit? Spirit was the aura, the suppression of the mind. Because Yi Xing's punch was only aimed at Zhao Xingyang, only Zhao Xingyang could feel the spirit of Yi Xing's punch. As for the other students, they felt that Yi Xing's punch was not much different from the previous two. God was a form of mental suppression. Therefore, the tiger in Zhao Xingyang's eyes was infinitely huge, almost as tall as the sky, occupying the whole world. Seeing such a huge tiger pouncing over, Zhao Xingyang was so scared that he almost peed his pants. There was only fear left in his heart, and he even forgot to use the scarlet flame palm. He just instinctively raised his hands to block. Bang! With a deep sound, Zhao Xingyang's body was like a cannonball as he was sent flying by Yi Xing's punch. He was blasted dozens of feet away, and was directly blasted out of the battlefield. The spectating students quickly dodged, and Zhao Xingyang fell to the ground. His arms were dripping with blood, and he spat out blood. He was seriously injured. Previously, when Zhao Xingyang was at a disadvantage, the students were already shocked and exclaimed impossible. However, just as they exclaimed impossible, Yi Xing gave them an even greater shock. He actually sent Zhao Xingyang flying with a punch. This simply made all the students dumbfounded. Except for the students who dodged Zhao Xingyang's body, the rest were all dumbfounded. They could not believe the scene just now. After Yi Xing sent Zhao Xingyang flying, he closed his eyes and sat cross-legged on the ground. All the sounds around him quieted down, and his heart was as still as water. Yi Xing had coincidentally reached the realm of spirit and transformation with that punch just now. He had a sudden epiphany in his heart. In the process of epiphany, one could accidentally feel a profound understanding and quickly turn it into something one truly understood. For martial artists, epiphany was an opportunity that could only be encountered by chance. The majority of martial artists would not have the chance to experience it even once in their lifetime. After a full breath, the deacon on the side recovered from his shock and announced the result. Yi Xing wins and advances to the top 5. The deacon's words caused all the martial artists to recover from their dumbfounded state. In an instant, there was an endless stream of surprised discussions. See, Yi Xing actually defeated Zhao Xingyang? Why didn't Zhao Xingyang resist just now? He only knew how to raise his hand to block. Otherwise, how could he be defeated so miserably by Yi Xing's punch? A student of the ordinary class, and a 2-star heavens mandate, with a cultivation of the 6th stage of the martial path, actually defeated 2 7th-stage grandmasters in a row and advanced to the top 5. Who can tell me, am I dreaming right now? Or am I hallucinating? Top 5, TSK. Even if the worst gets 5th place, there will be 4 upper-grade star accumulating pills, and 1 upper-grade medicinal herb as a reward. It's really enviable. The other 4 battles are not over yet, and he has already defeated Zhao Xingyang so quickly. I'm afraid his strength is considered to be in the top 5. His final ranking is probably not just 5th. Do you think he will take 1st place? 1st place? See, isn't this too exaggerated? What if he takes 1st place? That's too ridiculous. There are 15 martial Dao masters in the genius class. It's already a great shame for him to enter the top 5. If he takes 1st place, the genius class will not be called the genius class, it will be called the trash class. That's right. The academy specially divided 1 genius class and 10 ordinary classes. Isn't it to highlight the genius class and focus on cultivating geniuses? If the 1st place is taken by the ordinary class, then it's really blind. Why is Yi Xing sitting there all the time? The battle between him and Zhao Xingyang was not long, so he shouldn't have consumed too much energy. How could he have adjusted his internal breath? Yes, it's really strange. Is he cultivating? It won't be long before the top 5 assessment. What's the use of this time to cultivate? Oh, why are you shouting? Do you feel that there's a strange aura on Yi Xing? It feels very mysterious and profound. Is there? It seems that there really is. Why do I feel like I'm looking at a martial Dao grandmaster instead of a LV6 martial artist when I look at him? I understand. He is having an epiphany. The students discussed in surprise and finally discovered Yi Xing's abnormality. Moreover, some students thought of an epiphany and almost screamed out in surprise. Epiphany was simply a legend to the majority of martial artists. It was difficult to encounter one in their lifetime. However, any martial artist knew that epiphany was extremely beneficial to martial artists. If they could encounter it, it would be a great opportunity. How is this possible? He's only a LV6 martial artist. How can he reach the state of epiphany? Some students exclaimed in disbelief. Epiphany, since it had the word enlightenment, naturally had something to do with the martial artist's comprehension. Generally speaking, the higher a martial artist's attainment in martial arts, the easier it was for them to have an epiphany. The higher their attainment in martial arts, the higher their cultivation, and it was directly proportional. Therefore, when there were records of epiphany, the person was either a martial sage or a LV9 martial artist. Even LV8 martial artists were rare. Yi Xing was only a LV6 martial artist. Although his current state was very similar to the legendary epiphany, some students still found it hard to believe. When some students voiced their doubts, many others chimed in, expressing that it was impossible. However, the deacon in charge of the venue said with certainty, he has indeed entered the state of epiphany. This deacon was a LV8 martial artist. He was a LV8 martial artist. His vision was much higher than these new students, so his words were naturally credible. He's really in the state of epiphany? I heard that entering the state of epiphany will bring great benefits. Whether it's cultivation or strength, it will increase rapidly. He's already defeated Zhao Xingyang. If his strength increases again in the state of epiphany, won't he be first in this assessment? The students cried out in surprise once again. Yi Xing. At this moment, a sudden roar shook the sky. A figure suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xing. A surging aura erupted, suppressing Yi Xing puff. Yi Xing was interrupted in the process of epiphany, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. If it had been a normal discussion, no matter how loud it was, Yi Xing would have calmed himself down and ignored it in the state of epiphany. However, this roar was like a clap of thunder. Moreover, it was called his name, and it carried a shocking aura that suppressed him. Naturally, it forcibly pulled him out of the state of epiphany. How difficult was it to enter the state of epiphany? Interrupting one's epiphany was equivalent to cutting off one's opportunity. This could lead to a life-and-death battle. Flames of anger burned in Yi Xing's eyes. Just a little bit more, and he would have completely comprehended. Not only the roaring tiger fist, but many other martial arts techniques would have reached the true state of spirit. However, such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity was interrupted at the last moment. This caused his inner breath to go berserk, his qi and blood to flow backward, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. If it were not for his super brain's powerful ability that allowed him to remain clear-headed at such a critical moment, and instantly control the berserk inner breath and reverse qi and blood in his body, the moment his epiphany was interrupted, he would have almost gone mad and been severely injured. The students who were discussing in shock immediately quieted down. They looked at Xiong Qixing in front of Yi Xing in shock. They wondered, what kind of undying hatred is there between the two of them? Otherwise, why would Xiong Qixing do such a terrible thing to Yi Xing? Xiong Qixing, you are seeking death. Yi Xing stood up. His eyes were filled with terrifying murderous intent as he stared at Xiong Qixing, and said word by word. Xiong Qixing sneered and said, Yi Xing, you should know the rules in front of your seniors. I'm here to inform you that you will be the first to fight against Bian Chuxing for the top 5. Yi Xing said coldly, the arrangement will be decided by the school's deacons. It's not up to a student like you to interfere. You're clearly trying to interrupt my epiphany. Xiong Qixing said in shock. So you're in the middle of an epiphany? Don't joke around. How can you enter the state of epiphany? I'm just here to inform you. I saw that you seemed to be sleeping with your eyes closed, so I spoke a little louder. I'm so sorry. Yi Xing snorted and said, go ahead and pretend. I'll make you pay for it very soon. As he spoke, Yi Xing's aura suddenly exploded. He released his cultivation, and it was already at the late stage of LV6. You're tuning into the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.